Welcome back to the channel. This is Trendy Storm and you are watching first part of What If Naruto Was Betrayed by the Village and Joined Assassin Brotherhood. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
Ezio moved along the city's rooftops, dodging the guards along the way, enjoying the refreshing morning air of the ancient city of Roma. He was going to his sister's brothel to get the information that his mother and Claudia had just gotten for him. Nothing negative had happened to him this morning thus far, but he was aware that things would not be easy for him in a city that is still more than half under Templar control. He saw a family waking together as he descended to the street level to enter the brothel by the main entrance. There was a young man and what appeared to be his wife, who was holding a small child in her arms, as well as a man and a woman who appeared to be about his parents' age. They appeared to be very content, and it was at moments like these that he began to question what his life might have been like if his father and brothers had not been murdered by the Templars on that awful day. Instead of the life he was now compelled to lead as an assassin, could that have been him with a wife and child, his parents by his side, and his brothers as well? Because of the Templars' brutality and their ambition to rule the world in their own way, which only resulted in more deaths and distraction, he had lost a lot of close friends and family. He even frequently worried that if he ever had kids, they would eventually live this life as well. He pondered how his entire line would be compelled to fight this war going forward. However, this was not the moment to reflect on what might have been. The time had come to restore some measure of peace to this ancient city and put an end to the reign of another tyrant. At times, he wished he had the same freedom as the eagles that soared over Roma. Then he recalled that the literal meaning of his name, Ezio, was eagle, or the flying one. He also wished that his offspring would enjoy the same freedom as those eagles. After being forced to resign as a leaf shinobi more than a month ago, Naruto Uzumaki slowly opened his eyes and turned his head to face his campsite. He then cleared his camp and started to walk along the mountain trails, which were still embraced by the snow-covered ground and chilly winter air that gave this nation its original name, Snow. Because of the civilian council and the elders' council of his hometown of Konoha, where he was born, the 14-year-old was here alone. His most recent mission was to retake his former teammate Sasuke Uchiha, who had gone rogue to be with the snake Sannin Orochimaru, one of the village's biggest enemies, after they determined he posed too much of a risk to be kept in the village. The council used this mission to expel Naruto from the shinobi program because he had refused to use lethal force to bring his friend back. They were unable to expel him from the village and the nation, but they were able to prevent him from serving in the military and enjoying the Hokage's protection. Since he was no longer able to participate in the ninja program, Tsunade and Jiraiya had brought him into her office to share some information with him. This allowed him to make his own decisions about his future. His full name and the identities of his parents were disclosed to him during this meeting, and the information they provided was, to put it mildly, astounding. He was shocked to learn that his true first name was Washi and that he was the son of Kushina Uzumaki, the last surviving member of Hidden Whirlpool Village, and the fourth Hokage Minato Namikaze. When Tsunade asked him if he had been having weird dreams about the past during this meeting, he was even more shocked when she started talking in one of the languages he recognized from his dreams. She then informed him that his animus bloodline had come alive, enabling its users to relive their ancestors' memories and acquire many of their talents. The second aspect of the bloodline, the Eagle Eye, gave its user the ability to see who was their friend or enemy and to see secrets that were hidden from view. At this point, they also disclosed that he was now searching for a man named Raven Uzumaki in the high mountains of Spring Country because his parents had a contingency plan in case something similar ever happened to him. The man had been in this country for a while and was protecting something that had been given to him, whom he would defend with his life if necessary. It took him a while to escape the Leaf Village without anyone noticing, and then he needed more time to figure out where Raven might be hiding. The high mountain range of Spring Country, still ensnared by winter and snow on the ground, was the destination of his search. He eventually found a small cottage tucked away against the mountain itself later in the day. As he approached the porch of the cottage, he noticed an elderly man seated in a chair who turned to face the young man who had approached his modest house. "And who might you be, young man?" he asked. The old man smiled broadly and said, "It's good to finally meet you in person, Washi. Tell me, have the dreams started yet and can you control your eagle vision yet? Naruto Uzumaki, are you Raven Uzumaki by any chance?" he asked. "Yes, you're blue and gold. Come inside, young one, we have a lot to talk about, you and me," Raven said, grinning at the young man once more. After Washi trailed the elderly man into the cottage, Raven gestured for him to approach and take a seat at a small table. "So how did you find me, young man? Tsunade and Jiraiya of the Sanin told me where to start looking for you. After a little bit of time I heard about your whereabouts here in the mountains. Do you know why they sent you to me?" Raven then rose from his chair and moved to a wall with an odd symbol on it. He pushed on the symbol, which caused the wall to open in front of him, and then he gestured for Washi to follow him. "I know that it was a backup and my parents created to keep me safe." After following Raven into a sizable room that had been carved out of the mountain itself, Washi looked around and saw that it was an armory with multiple rooms scattered throughout, as well as a very large library. In addition, Washi saw 6 statues of people wearing hoods that resembled the people he had seen in his dreams. "They are the statues of our family's ancestors. Some of them I believe you have already seen thanks to the animus," Raven said after noticing him examining the statues. "Yes, but can you tell me who they all are?" "This statue is of our ancestor Altair ibn Lahad, who was the first to truly fight the Templars. This statue here is of your ancestor Ezio Auditore," Raven said, pointing to the first statue. After approaching the statue and placing his hand on it, Washi said, "I've seen so much of his life, Raven, and I know there is much more to come." Raven grinned and nodded his head. Ezio did not choose the life of an assassin at first, Washi, and in time he became one of the greatest maestros we've ever had. And after many adventures he finally met the woman he fell in love with and had a couple of kids and lived a good life until his dying day. When I look upon this statue, Washi, I sometimes see myself as well. "Who is she, mentor?" Raven looked at the third statue and grinned, saying, "Oh, this is Xiao Jun. She was a great hero and mentor to her people. She became the mentor of a group of Chinese assassins. She and her master once went on a quest to find Ezio, and she eventually met him. He gave her some much-needed advice and assistance. She settled down and had a family of her own, had a couple of children, and helped as many people as she could. This statue is of our ancestor Ratonhake Tun, who was also known as Connor to the future leaders of the country that would be known as America. He was in a way a freedom fighter and helped a great many people." Read the fourth statue, which depicted a man with a small knife in one hand and what appeared to be an odd type of battle axe in the other. The man clearly had an aura of power and understanding at his core. Washi moved to the fifth statue after being moved by his ancestors' actions and the lives they had been forced to lead. "This is our ancestor Desmond Miles. He wanted to live a normal life but was captured by the Templars," Washi said. "He was coerced into the Animus, a machine. That's the same name as our bloodline." "Yes, and it had comparable effects, but the machine was much more harmful, young one. Our ancestry began with Desmond here. It was the momentous occasion that gave rise to chakra and the world we know today. Instead of giving us the power of chakra, it would have wiped out the majority of humanity. If it weren't for Desmond and his friends at the time, none of us would be here today. Fortunately for us, it ultimately leveled the playing field with the Templars." Raven then indicated the final statue, saying, "This last statue is of your great-grandfather Renji Uzumaki, who was the cage of the hidden Whirlpool village and the leader of not only our family's clan but also the Assassin's Brotherhood. Much of our history is kept hidden here for its own protection and for the benefit of future generations, and it was he who sent me here to serve as their caretaker and trainer. I occasionally ponder whether he was aware of the impending conflict that would eventually destroy our house." Washi asked, "What happened to our home village, mentor?" I could see the hurt and pain in Raven's eyes. "We became experts at sealing, Washi, and many villages tried to learn our trade at any cost. Losing my left leg was one of those expenses. I was no longer able to engage in parkour, also known as free running. However, I could still teach assassination skills. To believe that we were nearly exterminated due to our sealing skills rather than the Templars." "So you're a guardian, a keeper of knowledge." "Yes, I am." "What was my mother like?" "That is really awesome." As he considered what to say to the young man in front of him, Raven approached the table, pulled out a chair, and sat down. "When I first met your mother, she was being sent to the Hidden Leaf Village to become the new host to the Nine-Tailed Fox. A week later, I lost my leg and was sent here to set up this sanctuary," Raven said. "It took some time, but in the end, we had it configured and operational. As soon as the Third Ninja War broke out, numerous assassins came to the area for protection or simply to look through the records. Then one day they completely stopped coming, and your mother wrote me a letter explaining what had happened to our house. We kept in touch as much as we could, and many years later, when your father and she came to visit me, I saw her again as a young woman. I completed your mother's assassination training and even put your father through it. Our sealing arts were the one thing that made him the happiest. After spending roughly 4 months here learning and eventually falling in love, they returned a few years later to inform me that your mother was expecting you. At this moment, a baby eagle, one of your mother's summoners, was sitting in her lap, listening to her belly in the hopes of hearing you. She also owned that pervert's buka, not the pornographic one, mind you, but his debut buka. Guess what the title of the main character was? Naruto. Tsunade said my mother was inspired by certain events when she named me. Raven grinned and nodded his head cheerfully, saying, your father also enjoyed the names. Washi means eagle, and Naruto means maelstrom, which is another word for whirlpool, in addition to being a ramen topping. We were so joyful at the time that I thought it would last forever, but after learning about what had happened to your hometown, I nearly gave up until you arrived. After removing a scroll, Washi gave it to Raven, who read it. This is from Granny Tsunade, she said it was for your eyes. Raven started reading the scroll after opening it. Dear Raven, if you are reading this, then Washi has located you in good health, and Jiraiya and I have instructed him on where to begin searching for you. Eagle and Flash have asked that you start teaching him the ways of the Brotherhood as soon as possible. We had hoped that you would one day teach him, but now that those who follow the Blood Red Cross are trying to take over our village and country, it is more important for him to be trained by you for survival. I only ask that you keep him safe. The Sanin Tsunade. After setting the scroll aside, Raven questioned him, did you read this, Washi? Raven chose to explain the letter's main point to him after he nodded his head no. They sent you to me to keep you safe from the Templars. You will comprehend the letter's meaning if you read it and apply the knowledge you have gained from your dreams. So the Templars were behind everything that happened to me and my parents. I don't know if I can do this, mentor. Washi sat down and pondered what lay ahead in his life after reading the letter and realizing immediately what had happened to him in his home village. His understanding of what the Templars were capable of screamed to him that his home and friends were now in terrible danger. Raven then gave it to Washi after opening a desk drawer and taking out a tiny jade pendant bearing the Brotherhood symbol. Your mother accidentally left that necklace behind when she was last here. It had belonged to your ancestor Xiao Jun and had been passed down through her line until it was hers. Raven put it in Washi's hand after saying, I thought she would want you to have it, but I was hoping to give it to her myself. Should I actually turn into an assassin, Raven? Washi held the pendant and looked at it carefully as he considered his options. He knew that his dream of becoming the next Hokage had been permanently destroyed by his enemies, and he had few options left, but it was a welcome change to know that Raven was at least giving him a choice regarding his future. The choice is yours alone to make, Washi, but if you wish to become an assassin, then I will train you. I have very few choices now, but to know that you would give me a choice in my future is something I haven't had a lot of, Washi continued, putting the pendant around his neck and gazing directly into Raven's eyes. You'll never know how much I think of you for that. Like my parents and ancestors before me, I will turn into an assassin. Very well, my student, in the morning we will begin your training. For now get some rest and I tell you more about who and what we are to this world. It was evident to Raven that Konoha had neglected a lot of the boy's training in the shinobi arts, so it was time to find out what he knew and what he didn't. The morning had arrived sooner than the two had anticipated anywhere. Outside in the forest, at the crack of dawn, their breath was visible to everyone who saw them. Raven stood directly in front of Washi, studying him intently. Now, Washi, tell me which ninjutsu you are familiar with, he questioned the boy. I know the academy basics like substitution and the disguise jutsu that I improved upon, so wouldn't be a simple illusion anymore. I also know my father's Rasengan and have mastered the shadow clone jutsu for combat purposes. The list of your jutsus is small but impressive, Washi. They did not know or care that they had a diamond in the rough among them. Do you know why? Raven was shocked by the list of jutsu the young man knew and suspected that his teachers had forgotten to mention the shadow clone's secondary ability. The shadow clone jutsu was initially developed to serve as a scout for a group of ninjas, he said, shaking his head. Nope. The benefit of this jutsu is that the user regains all of the clone's memories and experiences, so someone thought why not use it for training. A person could cut their training in half if they could produce just 2 of these clones every day. How many can you make, I must ask? I lost count at around 200 clones using my own chakra. I didn't even break a sweat. Raven's mouth was now hanging open in shock and amazement at what his student could do. The Leaf Village's loss was now his gain. He realized at this moment that in a matter of years he could turn this young man not only into an assassin but a master assassin. Create 50 clones and let us begin. After Washi followed his mentor's instructions, Raven divided the clones into groups of 5, with 10 clones each. He then instructed each group to train in a different location. The first group was sent back into the sanctuary to read many of the books on battle tactics and strategy that were kept there. The second group was sent to practice free running in a special course made for assassins to use. The third group was sent off with a clone of Raven himself to teach them hand.to. Hand combat. The fourth group was sent into the sanctuary to start learning about the sealing arts that made the Uzumaki clan famous. The fifth and final group of clones approached Raven while he opened a shipping crate containing a variety of weapons that the assassins used in their line of work. I think you know what you can do now with this technique, but the question I have to ask you is how far you are willing to go in this kind of training? Raven approached his student and helped him up from the ground he had been sitting on. By the end of the day, Washi was exhausted from the training regiment, but he had learned more than he ever imagined and realized he had completed a week of training in a single day. As far as I can mentor, as far as I can. You have a lot to learn and not enough time, so make 75 clones tomorrow rather than 50. Raven grinned as he made his way back to the cottage, pleased with Washi's resilience during the training. Now go get some sleep, you earned it. Washi's training increased significantly over the course of the week. By the end of the week, he had raised the number of clones from 75 to well over 125. His understanding of seals had advanced from the most basic to the more advanced, and his familiarity with hand.to. Hand combat and the weapons used by the assassins on their missions had grown to the point where he could now give Raven a little workout. When Raven entered the sanctuary's main library, he saw Washi and his clones reading as many books as they could. Washi entered a room named Sean Hastings, which resembled a workstation more than a library section, and he was holding a picture of a happy couple, one of whom was holding a small child in her arms. That is your ancestor Desmond and his wife Rebecca Crane. They met when Desmond was freed from the Templars, Raven said. Following the incident, they fell in love and began a family. Startled by what he had just learned, Washi set down the photo and asked his mentor, is this entire section about them? Yes and no, Washi. A lot of their lives are documented here. Many of the items recovered from the Animus during Desmond's sessions are among the many items that Sean and Rebecca both recorded during their lifetimes. This is perhaps our most famous weapon, the Hidden Blade, Raven said, gesturing for Washi to follow him into another room that was filled with only weapons. Several were already laid out for him to examine. Raven picked up the first one, which was obviously the Hidden Blade. All of your ancestors have used this weapon, in one form or another, against our enemies at some point. It is, for the most part, a useful weapon against our adversaries. It enables us to kill covertly and without being noticed. We even have a version that fits in our combat boots, and we've been known to wear one on each arm. Go ahead and put it on, it's yours. After Washi tested the blade and found it to be fairly functional, Raven proceeded to another object that resembled the Hidden Blade and said, this is an Ottoman hook blade. It has two functions to act as both the hidden blade and the hook. They can allow us to gain access to new areas that would have been impossible for you previously. The next item is one of my personal favorites. A poisoned blade that lets us kill someone up close and stealthily. When we can't get close enough, the blade can also be used as a medium, range weapon. This weapon is the hidden gun. It's practically a lost weapon in today's age, Raven said, picking up another object and passing it to Washi. It has a longer range than our poison dart system and can hold up to 6 rounds of ammunition. You must use this weapon, Washi, very carefully because it can reveal our location and makes a lot of noise when used. Raven then remarked, like the hidden gun, young warrior, these are practically a lost art in today's time. They are known as handguns, and in time I will show you how to be deadly accurate with them. Washi nodded to his mentor as he watched him pick up 2 rather odd-looking weapons that somewhat reminded him of the hidden gun. Another long-range weapon that we use is the pump-action crossbow. It can hold up to 15 arrow bolts and is very easy to use, but we also have one of the most impressive long-range weapons of all, the assassin's sniper rifle, he said, picking up another weapon for his young pupil to observe. Your grandfather was an excellent master of this weapon. He could hit a target for more than 2 miles away, Raven said, picking up a very long and lethal-looking weapon. No one is perfect, and his best kills came from a distance. These are just a handful of our assassin's grenades. They use a fuse or a detonator instead of chakra-like explosive tags do. These grenades come in a variety of forms. For instance, we have 2 types of smoke bombs that can conceal us from view while allowing us to see with our eagle vision. In addition to producing a loud noise that can serve as a distraction, the next one is explosive in nature and has the potential to kill or maim. Raven approached Washi and said, "Washi, you have already finished at least 2 months of training in just 1 week. I'm going to increase your training tenfold from this moment." Washi nodded as he examined all the weapons in front of him. "We have a lot of work ahead of us." After a year, former shinobi Yugito Ni of Lighting Country's hidden cloud village was now fleeing for her life as she was pursued by mercenaries hired by dishonest political figures in her village who wanted her as a breeding stock or weapon. Her cage had decided that it was safe for her to be as mobile as possible due to the threat posed by the Akatsuki organization. She was in Spring Country because of a rumor that a certain man who had saved her mother's life for a long time was now living here somewhere in the high mountains that were still under the influence of Winter's touch. She was secretly hoping that he could help her the way he had helped her mother in the past, but right at this moment she felt a spike of chakra and swiftly ducked behind a tree as a hail of knives and kunais flew past. If it weren't for the tree, she would have probably been impaled and would have been a bloody mess. Her chakra reserves were now dangerously low, preventing her from using her more potent attacks to escape the situation. She was breathing heavily as she turned her head to look at the other side of the tree and saw the mercenaries moving into a position to capture her. The group leader approached her and said, "You know, Kat, I've been looking forward to this for some time now," after she counted at least 10 of them that appeared ready to go in for the kill. "Little girl, they only stated that we had to return you alive and undamaged, but that doesn't mean we can play with you first." They all turned around to discover that 2 of their members were gone, leaving only bloodstains on the ground, and they began searching the area to determine what had happened and whether they were being attacked. Before he could extend his hand to grasp her, they all heard what sounded like gurgling noises coming from right behind them. While attempting to determine the source of the attack, the group leader swiftly grabbed Yugito by the throat and used her as a human shield. However, he watched in horror as a man wearing an odd black outfit with a hood leapt down on top of his 2 men, causing them to instantly collapse under his weight and making it obvious that they were not getting up. The warrior swiftly drew 2 swords and started slicing down the remaining mercenaries as if they were nothing at all. As he approached, he noticed that 2 blades were protruding from his wrists, dripping with the blood of his men. He then moved like lightning, slaying another one. After flipping both of his swords backwards so they could still be used, the warrior approached the leader and a final mercenary, who were now extremely terrified. The leader then declared, "Come any closer and I will kill her." At this point, Yugito was in shock. She turned her head to see the warrior walking up to retrieve his sword from the dead mercenary's chest and then began to try to get her attention by moving his hand in front of her face. Although the leader could not see the man's face clearly, he could still make out enough of it to know that he was not amused at all. Before the leader could make any other demands or warnings to the warrior, his head literally exploded, killing the remaining mercenary. At this point, Yugito saw that the man in white was much older than the one in black, and the older man recognized her right away. "What is the host of the 2-tailed cat doing here in Spring Country?" she asked as he emerged from the woods carrying a long, strange-looking weapon. "How are you aware of my identity?" The old man told her, "We are the ones who work in the shadows to serve the light. Do you know where I can locate Raven Uzumaki, your assassins?" Raven then inspected the young woman and grinned, recognizing her. "You're her daughter, aren't you?" "It's you, Master Uzumaki. I need all the help I can get," he said to her, shocking Yugito. "My mother told me as a child that I should come to you if I ever needed assistance because you saved her life when she was a little child. Even though your home village had long since been destroyed, she told me this evening that you were still alive for some reason." After grinning at her, Raven said, "I think you need to tell us what's going on. Follow me." After about 20 minutes, Yugito washed the blood from her face and body and made her way into the living room, where she sat in a chair across from the 3 of them. Raven then chose to introduce himself, saying, "Well, young lady, you already know who I am, but in the interest of good manners, my name is Raven Uzumaki." Yugito Ni, former shinobi of the Hidden Cloud Village. My name is Washi Naruto Uzumaki and it is a pleasure to meet you, my fellow host of A Tailed Beast, Washi said after pulling back his hood to reveal his face to her for the first time. Raven began asking the necessary questions after Yugito was shocked to learn that the missing Jinchuriki of Konoha had been hiding here in Spring Country for so long. Why are you a former shinobi, Yugito? Members of our civilian council were able to exert considerable control over our military forces approximately 6 months ago. The Raikage also learned that they had plans for me and my fellow host B. At the time, they couldn't touch B, but I wasn't so fortunate. The council intended to sell me out to the Akatsuki, so our cage told me to leave the program and run. So they will do everything in their power to get you back and use you for whatever purpose they have in mind, Washi said, feeling that her experience was very similar to his. It sounds a lot like my lot in life, no matter the cost. There is a huge bounty on your head right now, Washi, more than you realize. Your village, like me, wants you to return alive and undamaged for some reason. After studying them both, Raven saw how similar they were in many ways. Yugito, I must ask, would you consider training to become an assassin since you are no longer a ninja of any village? This training might help you both fight off the Akatsuki members who will soon be pursuing you both. Will you then enroll in my classes? She had never been given a choice in her life, so it was a welcome change. She knew that many of the old timers in her village had told her stories about assassins, and they were described as both powerful and kind. She also knew that they had the ability to vanish like ghosts in the night, and the fact that her mother had also been saved by one made her decision even simpler. Yes, I will join you since I have few other options because of them. However, you did save my mother, so I have faith in you. When should I start? After 6 months. Yugito, who had never intended to fall in love when she first arrived, especially with her fellow host of the Nine-Tailed Fox, started to slowly wake up and roll out of the bed she shared with her boyfriend Washi, who had been sleeping right next to her. She laughed when she realized that he had already left for his morning training. The night before, Yugito had finished her training and became a full-fledged member of the Brotherhood, or as she liked to call it sometimes, the Sisterhood. It had been 2 months since they had begun dating, and she could no longer imagine her life without him. She came downstairs to the cabin's kitchen to find Raven busy preparing breakfast for them. She sat down at the table, started eating her breakfast, and wondered what Washi might be up to when she heard a loud crash and bang outside from his training routine. She went outside and saw him engaged in heavy combat with many of his clones, something they had come to do every day and she had grown accustomed to. The clone exploded into smoke as the blow landed on its target, and it also put wind chakra into his last spring, destroying the base of a tree that had been directly behind the clone in the attack. Washi was running among his clones, dodging their attacks, and slicing them down one by one until he finally got the last clone. He then swiftly ducked his head under the clone's sword swing and then proceeded to cut it in two with a single swift swipe of his blade. I would prefer that you do that in the bedroom and not out here if you don't mind. Now the breakfast is ready and we have much to do today, Raven said as he opened the back door, bringing them both out of this heartwarming moment. Washi realized he had an audience listening to the sound of clapping and turned to see Yugito standing there clapping with a smile on her face. He sheathed his swords and approached her, and she gave him a tender embrace. Curious about what their teacher and leader had in store for them today, the two went back inside and sat down at the table. Yugito, ever the curious one, decided to simply come out and ask him, "So what's happening today, old man?" "A lot, my young students. We're going to the capital of Spring Country today. Now that there are 3 of us, we can start carrying out missions and perhaps recruit new members to help us reach our target number once more." It had been a while since he had last seen his old friend Koyuki, who was now the Spring Daimyo, so Washi was a little taken aback by this turn of events. "So we're going to see the Daimyo. I can't wait to see her again, she's an old friend, Raven. So you are the hero I heard about. It looks like fortune has favored us again. If we are to rebuild our people, we will require her assistance. We're leaving in an hour, so finish your breakfast and get dressed, you two." As Raven rode on the back of his summoner, a large eagle named Tulan, who was also the leader of the Eagle Clan and a friend to the assassins, the air above the capital of Spring Country was a welcome change of pace. His clan had long served as the personal summoning animals to the Uzumaki clan. Raven then turned to his left to see Washi and Yugito riding on the back of Toulon's daughter, Juno, before the two eagles made a screaming power dive, swooped out of the clouds, and dove deep towards the daimyo's castle of Spring Country, formerly known as the Land of Snow. The two large birds of prey spread out their wings, slowing their descent and landing easily upon the roof itself, shocking the palace guards who were standing on the ramparts of the castle's wall. Many of them looked up in shock to see two large raptors flying down at the castle like bats out of hell. The second raptor moved one of its wings downwards to allow her passengers to slide down to the ground with little effort on their part. The largest of the two had a single man on its back, wearing a white robe with a hood that concealed his identity from them, and he proceeded to jump down upon the ground. The first man to dismount, who was obviously in his mid to early 60s, had more strength than the palace guards could have guessed. He approached the prey and said, "Thank you, my old friend, for bringing us here today." "It was my pleasure, Raven. My daughter and I will wait for you to return." When Toulon said, "I want you two to be on your best behavior for Raven," the two young assassins approached him and stood in front of him. "Washi, Yugito. You know, we old guys need to stick together." She rolled her eyes at her father and then said, "You two are very fortunate, and the same is true for you too, Juno. Behave yourself. You are aware of that. My old man isn't much fun, so I have to stay out here. I heard that, daughter." The three assassins then proceeded to the palace guards, who were still trying to understand what was happening, and Raven approached them, saying, "My name is Raven Uzumaki, current leader of the Brotherhood of Assassins, and have come to speak to your daimyo, Lady Koyuki." She then gave her father a smile and waved her wing at him. Now in complete disbelief, the guards had all heard tales of the legendary assassin Raven who had helped the rebellion in its hour of need. Among the gathered group of palace guards, one man, Wang, who was the leader of the palace guards and the protector of Lady Daimyo Koyuki, smiled as he greeted Raven. The two men shook hands firmly before Wang said, "I see you like making an entrance, my old friend, and who are the young ones?" "They are my young pupils, hopefully the first of many. My friend, will we now be permitted to see your leader?" After a few minutes of exploring the castle's halls, Wang chuckled and gestured for the assassins to follow him inside to see the Lady Daimyo herself. They eventually found a door leading to the daimyo's secretary and beyond her office, where the secretary looked up to see Wang and his deadly companions approaching her. Wang then bowed his head to her and said, "I have some associates here that I think the daimyo you would like to see. Would be all right for a meeting with her at this time?" The secretary was about to speak when the door flew open and three leaf ninjas appeared in front of them. Washi quickly recognized who had left the office: his old sensei Kakashi Hitaki, who had not changed much, a pink-haired girl who happened to be his former teammate Sakura Haruno, and a young man who was nearly deathly pale and someone he did not recognize. He was a little nervous to see them again, but he remained composed in the face of the threat. What shocked him the most was the heated exchange between Kakashi and Koyuki, during which she yelled for everyone to hear, "Leave my country immediately. I don't want to have anything to do with you. Furthermore, even if I were aware of Naruto's location, I would still keep it a secret from you. Now leave. But we need to find Lady Koyuki, who has been missing for over a year and a half. We have to locate him." Kakashi took the hint and gestured for his team to follow him out of the palace and eventually the country as he willed, but she only responded with an angry scowl. He tried to argue his point again, but she shot him down in the process, causing several palace guards to come to their lady's defense. The assassins also tensed and prepared for battle. Koyuki saw Raven and his friends standing in a corner with Wang after the leaf ninjas had left the room. Before she could speak to them, Wang made the hasty decision to introduce them, saying, "My lady, this is Master Raven of the Assassin's Brotherhood and two of his students." Wang had told Koyuki the stories of this legendary man numerous times, so she returned to her office and sat down behind her desk as Wang and the assassins entered directly behind her. The three assassins then pulled down their hoods to reveal their faces to the leader of the Land of Spring as a sign of trust, but she stared at one of them in disbelief. "Naruto?" Yugito was shocked by the woman's behavior toward her boyfriend and mate, but she also realized that it had been over a year and a half since Koyuki had last seen him, so she probably knew a little about how he had ended up in hiding and understood why the Lady Daimyo had been so upset with the leaf ninjas. Koyuki then released him from the Hog of Death and looked at him, saying, "You look good, Naruto. Lady Tsunade said you would be coming to our country at some point in the future. As the man approached, he was practically tackled by the ruler of the Land of Spring, who was crying with tears of joy upon seeing her nation's hero. I've been here for a while, Princess, and I discovered that I have family still alive, he said, grinning and chuckling slightly as he looked up into her eyes. For heaven's sake, I even discovered that Naruto is not my first name. What is it? Koyuki then approached the young, blonde Jinchuriki and gave her a quick once over before nodding her head in agreement. I like her Washi, she seems like your perfect counterpart, but if you break his heart, little girl, I will break you, Koyuki said. Washi, and I'd like to introduce you to my girlfriend, Yugito ni. Do we have that clear? When Yugito realized that this woman was more like a big sister to him than a rival for his affection, she simply nodded her head. Raven could only grin at the two young ladies' antics, so he sent down one of the many chairs that lined the daimyo's office. Following a few minutes of introductions and conversation, the two leaders started talking about why Raven was in the capital. Koyuki had heard his proposal and agreed that it had a lot of potential, but she also understood that another country needed their assistance much more right now. Master Raven, you have raised some excellent points, but right now there is no immediate threat to the Land of Spring. But I can't be so sure about the future. Raven was taken aback by her final statement and realized that a terrible thing was about to happen. You have learned something about a potential danger to your nation, have you not? Yes, we have been watching them more closely lately because of our closeness to the Land of Water. A man named Jack Webb and his daughter Mai approached me recently. Jack was a member of their Grand Navy of the Land of Water until they killed his wife for having a bloodline limit. It is thanks to them that we have learned that the bloodline civil war is still going on over there and that their daimyo seem to be very interested in our nation and its technology. Following that, a number of additional captains and their crews joined the resistance to help fight the growing tension in the maritime region. A number of naval officers remained at their posts to provide information to the resistance. We recently learned that they are thinking about invading our nation. We will all be in grave danger, along with the other elemental nations, if they are successful in this. Raven immediately made the decision to assist the people of Water Country and permanently end the corruption and tyranny that ruled that land after the assassins were shocked by this information and realized what it might mean for the Land of Spring, if not the entire world. I agree with your assessment of this situation, Lady Daimyo, something must be done and soon. She gestured for one of her assistants to come over and make the necessary arrangements for the assassins to meet the captain and his daughter, saying, I would like to personally speak with the captain to develop a strategy to combat this threat. A man who appeared to be in charge of this project was walking alongside the dock workers when the three assassins, led by one of the daimyo's personal aides, entered a large private ship that was docked and contained a rather odd-looking ship. One of the many dock workers pointed them out to the man, who turned to face them and was quite surprised to see an old friend among them. Raven, you old dog, what you doing here? You might say that I've decided to come out of retirement, but let me first introduce you to one of my old friends, Master Shipbuilder Duke, who is also my old friend Washi, Yugito. We were sent here by the daimyo to gain information from Captain Jack Webb about our upcoming mission, Raven said to his old friend after the two young assassins approached Duke and shook hands. You wouldn't happen to know where he is, old friend? Duke then gestured to a man standing with a small group of men and women who were looking at a schematic of the ship in question. Yep, right over there, Raven. After expressing gratitude to Duke, who returned to work on the ship in question, Raven approached the group with both of his young students right behind him. As the rest of the group turned to see who was approaching them, one of the men noticed them approaching and gestured to them. The daimyo's assistant then introduced them to the captain, Capt. Allow me to present to you, Webb, Master Raven of the Brotherhood of Assassins and his two apprentices, Washi and Yugito. The captain then removed a cigar from its mouth and bowed slightly to the assassins while the daimyo's assistant continued to explain their purpose for being here. After the two groups spoke for a while, Raven became even more certain that this mission was the most important thing he could possibly understand. After taking a moment to reflect, Jack said, the resistance is now in hiding, Master Raven. In fact, they're hiding in their enemy's backyard, right in the Land of Water's capital city itself. What about the hidden village of Mist? Raven then made the decision to find out more information about their destination. Do you know if the resistance is still in One Piece, and where can we find them as well, Captain? Washi inquired. The answer to this question came from Mai, the captain's daughter. To shield him from the opposition, the daimyo of the Land of Water shut down the village hidden in the mist and moved all of the shinobi who remained faithful to him to the nation's capital. However, since the resistance has a significant presence there as well, this kind of backfired for him. This ship is being built for the purpose of helping many people with bloodlines leave the country, which they have done so far. Yes, if we had this a couple of years ago, my mother might be alive today. Washi quickly realized the purpose of the ship. It's a stealth ship to get people out of the country safely. Washi smiled and said, "Yes, we can. How soon can we leave? But can you people really do what you say you can? Whatever you guys are planning to bring with you, you have exactly that much time," Jack Webb said after lighting his cigar. "We're leaving in exactly 2 days at sunset." Washi was the first to express his thoughts on the issue that had started to consume all of the three assassins' waking thoughts after they had just entered the sanctuary's main hall later that evening. 2 days to prepare, it's not a lot of time, he said. "Young warriors, it will be sufficient. We will gather the information we need on the way to the Land of Water and more once we get there. Fortunately for us, however, we do have some knowledge about the Land of Water." They were taken aback by this fact when Raven passed them on his way to the sanctuary's library. It may be outdated, but it can still be useful. Following him into a locked section of the library, Washi and Yugito saw Raven pulling out multiple scrolls and maps labeled Water Territory. After examining a number of the maps, Raven pulled out one in particular and unfolded it for everyone to see, saying, "This map may be out of date by say at least 20 years, but it is much more than just a standard street map. The Assassin's Den system is depicted on the map. We were present in Water Country, right? Yes, Water, Spring, which was formerly known as the Land of Snow, and Whirlpool were the lands we typically operated in," Washi inquired. "In addition to Fire Country and, of course, the Hidden Leaf Village." Now that Yugito and Washi were carefully examining the map, Washi remarked, "We must locate these dens because they might still be concealed in the capital." "Yes, I think they are using some of them if they have managed to stake a claim in the capital city. Some of these here are large enough for the resistance to use if they come across them. We must locate one specifically and check to see if it is still intact. We might have to rebuild what's inside if it's not." "What is it, old man?" "We were able to enter these nations using a unique teleportation seal system that prevented our adversaries from initially detecting our presence. The so-called gateway was frequently used to transport assassins from one location to another prior to our fall. Then Yugito became aware of something. Isn't there a gateway in these sanctuaries?" "Yes, and there was another one in Whirlpool a long time ago," Raven said with a smile. "Can we use the one here in the sanctuary to go to the Land of Water?" "I know that one was destroyed a long time ago," Washi inquired. Raven said, "I'm afraid the gateway doesn't operate that way, and you have to activate the 2 points within an hour," after giving a nod. "Or you must wait a week before attempting again." Yugito was genuinely impressed by the system and understood how crucial it was to locate once they arrived in the Land of Water. "And since it's been over 20 years since they were last activated, we have to find the one in the Land of Water and pray that it's still functional. And if you don't use them within a certain amount of time, my young warriors, they deactivate." "It's beautiful, isn't it? I met my wife on one of our missions together," Jack said as he approached the three assassins standing on the deck of the stealth ship named Silent Run. The ship had just completed her sea trials under the watchful eye of Duke, and the following day it would be in the territorial waters of their target country. "I was a sailor, and she was a shinobi. We clicked, and within a year we were married and she was expecting our daughter. Some people said I never had a chance with her, and I quote, 'It's like angels flying out of your ass to get next to the likes of her.'" "So what happened?" Yugito asked, observing the emotion in his eyes. "She was on a mission a few years after the war began, and she had no choice but to reveal her bloodline in order to prevent her team from being killed. Although they all returned safely, one of the individuals they were sent to pick up exposed herself to the forces of the village. She gave her life to prevent us from being killed when they came for us and killed a few of her teammates in the resulting battle. Everyone on my ship, including her surviving teammates, decided it would be safer to flee, so we turned into pirates and joined the others who had gone wrong to save their own lives and families. I still have nightmares about that day, seeing my wife fight to the death to save us and my little girl repeatedly yell for her mother to join us. However, we never lost hope that we would one day retake our nation and save everyone else that we were forced to abandon. After that, we encountered the princess of the Land of Spring, who consented to assist us in regaining our nation from those despots. At this moment, Jack remarked, "Those three were my wife's best teammates." She called them the Wreckers. They all heard three men strolling around the deck and discussing whether the ship was prepared for its mission. They are also competent sailors and engineers, and if they are inspecting the ship at this very moment, it indicates that we are going to enter the territorial waters of water countries. As the exterior of the ship started to change, the three of them followed Jack and the Wreckers below deck. As they entered the bridge, they saw a young ensign approach them and say to Jack, "Captain, we are prepared to submerge the boat and all crew members are present." "Very good, dive officer, take us down." "Yes, sir. Helmsman, take us to periscope depth and plot a course for the capital of the land of water." As the crew went about their duties, the bridge became a flurry of movement, and Washi, Yugito, and Raven watched as the ship started to slide beneath the ocean waves as it made its way to the nation's capital in agony and sorrow. In the silent run, the assassins spent most of their time learning the layout of their destination and possible targets. Within hours, they knew they would arrive at their destination and begin to learn the lay of the land. Fortunately, Jack would help them enter the city, and Washi could only imagine what would happen once they were inside its walls. At this point, all he could think about was what Haku had told him that awful day in Wave Country. Since Yugito had heard and memorized this story, she could relate to Washi's anxiety as they neared their destination. Glancing over to see him staring out of one of the numerous portholes that at this moment only revealed the deep blue sea, she walked up behind him, gave him a much-needed hug, and asked, "What are you thinking about right now?" "I've been reflecting a lot lately on what Haku endured while she was still in this nation. And after listening to Jack's story, I'm left wondering if this land can be saved at all. This task will not be easy, Washi, but if we do not do this, then who will?" Raven then said to calm his apprentice's nerves, and they both nodded. "Master Raven, what will be our first priority once we arrive? Do we settle in the city or do we search for the den with the gateway? Of course, my young warriors, the beloved captain will know the best targets to hit immediately once we establish ourselves in the city." As he started to pack up the maps, Raven remarked, "And hopefully the resistance will find us by doing this, and if they agree to help us then we can begin to look for the den and the gateway and pray it is intact." Raven knew they would be busy soon. When the silent run surfaced, the crew moved quickly to safely remove the cargo from the ship because they had only 2 hours before the early morning light would expose them to their enemies. The three assassins were led to one of the many rowboats that had been brought out for this mission to get them to the shore of the land of water. The ship's bridge was extremely quiet, and the lights were kept to a minimum so that the ship could unload its valuable cargo to the people of the land of water and offload its more dangerous passengers to the tyrants who ruled this nation. "Let me go with you, father." "Not this time, Mai." "Why not, father?" Washi and Yugito watched Mai approach her father. He halted his work and turned to face her when she asked, saying, "I understand that you want retribution for what he did to your mother, but not right now, okay?" She nodded to her father before approaching the assassins. Washi could tell she was disappointed that she couldn't accompany them, so he asked her, "You must really want revenge on this man, Mai. There are people's lives at stake, and we both know he's too strong right now to kill. Just have patience, princess. More than you realize, I watched that men butcher men and women who were like members of my family, even if it was not by blood," she said, turning to face him with sorrow in her eyes. "He is currently one of the top enforcers for the daimyo, and my mother gave her life to save us. He now murders any member of the resistance or those with a bloodline from the land of water. He is equally as evil as the man they refer to as the civilian." Yugito took notice of this and inquired, "The civilian?" "Yes, the civilian is a bounty hunter and one of the daimyo's primary hitmen. He hunts down people with bloodlines similar to mine. Together, those two men have killed more people in this war than anyone else. Additionally, he can hunt us and the resistance with his own private army." Raven then made the decision to pose his own query. "Young one, do you know their names?" "Yes. Bane is the name of the civilians. Aizen is the name of the man who murdered my mother. I only ask that you stop these two for me one day." She went below decks again as her father approached them and said, "It's time to go." Washi then approached her, looked her in the eyes, and said, "I promise you one way or another we will save this country. You have my word on that." "Thank you, Washi." After the three assassins nodded to him, they boarded the boat and set out into the dark, as the land of water had come to be known. Within 10 minutes, they were standing on one of the many docks of the capital city itself. Washi looked around the area and was shocked to see that there were towers everywhere, which reminded him a lot of the Borgia towers in ancient Rome during Ezio's time. "What do those towers serve?" Washi asked the captain. "From what I've been told about them, the towers are solely for the purpose of controlling the city's population and safeguarding the daimyo's interests," Jack said to Washi after glancing up at the closest tower. "Each tower has a well-equipped platoon of men who are prepared to kill anyone at the drop of a hat, even if it means the people must suffer as a result. And that doesn't include the harm they inflict on the people and business owners who support them." Jack himself watched the three assassins walking towards the nearest tower with a determined look on their faces, each one checking their various weapons and even unsealing more for the battle to come. Raven and Washi turned to each other and silently agreed on their course of action. Yugito could see right away that the two were up to something and evolving the towers themselves. What the hell are they up to? This is what Jack asked himself as one of his crew members walked up to him and said, "Sir, we managed to unload everything." The crew member then realized that his captain had not heard him and appeared to have his attention on something else, or rather someone. The crew member then spoke a little louder to get his captain's attention. "Sir." This got Jack's attention as he turned to the crew member and asked, "Yes, what is it?" "Sir, we have successfully unloaded all of the cargo, and it is currently being distributed." "Well done." "Sir, what's going on?" "I think our passengers lost their damned minds. They're going to take on that tower." "That's a little crazy if you ask me." "We'll find out very soon." Jack then made the decision to simply state what he believed was happening. Raven was the first to move, finding a ladder to reach the high ground so he could start picking off his enemies with a sniper rifle. Yugito moved with the crowd, blending in with them, and started to take out several of the guards here and there. It didn't take long for the guards who were harassing the people to get theirs. Raven had finished explaining his plan to the young assassins, who then went to do their individual tasks to take down the tower and begin the liberation of the land and water. A large group of soldiers were leaving the tower's courtyard and entering a large market square at the same time that Washi was on top of the buildings searching for his main target, the platoon captain. He used his eagle vision to see if his target was among them and was rewarded with his target insight. However, before the assassins could move, several of the guards turned their attention to a young woman and her son, and the guard's captain immediately set off a flare high into the sky. Washi immediately gave the signal and launched his attack on the captain and his guards. The woman was holding her son close to her body with a look of obvious fear on her face, and she started to back up until she hit the wall directly behind her. "It's so good to see you again, Lady Kukaku, and this young man must be the heir to the land of water," said the captain of the guards, who strode through his men with a smirk so large it threatened to split his face wide open. "My lady, your brother.in.law will be overjoyed to see you again." The captain of the guards began to reach out for her. It was at this time that the captain heard sounds of screaming coming from his men in the rear. He quickly turned around only to see a strange warrior in black with a hood that conceals his identity from anyone. The captain watched almost in slow motion as two of his men fell to the ground unmoving as the glow of life left their eyes. The warrior in black then moved like lightning, shoving the blade sticking from his wrists right into the throats of his men all over again. The rest of the men engaged him in heavy combat as the captain then quickly reached out for Kukaku and her son, only for another strange warrior, this time in white and clearly a female, to intercepted him and delivered a strong kick to his skull, sending him crashing to the ground. Without warning, he saw the woman flick her wrist and a small blade popped out of her sleeve, which she then delivered right into his heart, ending his wicked life. The last thing he saw and heard was her moving away from him to protect the woman and child. The last words he would hear would be hers, "Rest in peace." Raven had to acknowledge that his two students were proving to be very proficient in the arts of the Assassin's Brotherhood, but it was at this precise moment that he noticed a group of men approaching, with another platoon of soldiers directly behind them. At the head of the group was a gruff-looking man wearing a large hat and what appeared to be red goggles covering his eyes from view. Raven used his own eagle vision to see that another tower captain was present in the group directly behind this man, who was obviously not a friend of the populace. The strange man had what appeared to be guns with blades attached to each of his hips. Raven knew that he had to eliminate this man as quickly as possible, so he lined up his shot on him and let the bullet fly, only to hit the platoon captain directly behind him as he moved just enough to avoid the bullet. Bane was known by a number of names, including the Civilian and the Scourge, but his favorite was Bane. As he and his men entered the plaza, which housed the market and was adjacent to the tower that had warned them of the lost heir's presence, Bane glanced at the top of one of the many buildings and saw a bullet and a shot coming straight at his head. He quickly ordered his bounty hunters and the soldiers directly behind him to attack the strange warriors, and he then noticed Lady Kukaku being protected by the strange warriors. Raven was now firing as quickly as he could at the soldiers and bounty hunters, but the strange guy in the hat was proving to be very elusive and knew exactly where he was, so it was time to get out. He quickly sealed up his rifle and located a place where he could safely perform the leap of faith before jumping from the building's roof, watching as a clone of Washi planted the paper bombs and performed his own leap of faith as the tower exploded in on itself, sending large pieces of the tower falling directly into the tower's courtyard and hitting a couple of the soldiers as well. Raven was relieved that the first tower had fallen and that he didn't have to descend this building because it was difficult for him to get up here in the first place due to his age and his prosthetic leg. He turned to the wreckers and said, "Boys, get the lady and her kid out there right now, and clear a path for the assassins." "You got Captain," a Scottish-sounding voice said as the three of them activated their special battle armor and went straight for the kill. Jack and a couple of his men, including the wreckers, were shocked to see the late daimyo's wife and the potential heir of the Land of Water itself. The assassins had made a way for the woman and her child to escape from the soldiers and the bounty hunters, but Jack wanted to make sure his new allies would also make it. A.N. Washi's fighting style with swords will be similar to Starkiller's from Star Wars: The Force Unleashed 2. The soldiers had never faced an opponent like this before. The two blades were enhanced with wind chakra so they could cut through just about anything they came in contact with. Unfortunately for the bounty hunters and soldiers that happened to be them, he dodged every swing of the sword and every thrown projectile that was sent at him. When the last soldier hit the ground dead, Washi threw one of his heavy smoke bombs to hide them from pursuit. With a raspy voice, Bane noted that things had drastically changed in the Land of Water. "It would appear that we have some new enemies. At least we now know that Lady Kukaku and the heir are here in the city at least." After the smoke had cleared, Bane and one of his other bounty hunters who had survived the battle walked out into the open, knowing that their enemy had long since vanished. "Set up a bounty on those three warriors and tell our special teams to begin searching for them immediately. Additionally, raise the bounty on Jack Webb and his team. I want to know who I'm currently battling, so please provide me with as much information as you can about them." If someone had ever gotten up close and personal and looked underneath them at this time, they would have seen a fully developed Sharingan. He started to observe the area without ever taking off his goggles. The destruction was undoubtedly a surgical strike that was intended to cause maximum damage to their forces while leaving the civilians unharmed. He was impressed and enamored by their skills for doing such a thing, but he was also incensed. Aizen strolled around the market area, taking in the scene before him. He had never seen anything like this before, and it was shocking to see. Aizen had worked with the bounty hunter numerous times before and was aware that some of his prey were easier than others, but this would not be one of those occasions. As he continued into the market, he encountered the bounty hunter Bane, who was also appreciating his new enemies and their efforts. "They were pretty impressive, really," Bane said, turning to face Aizen. "Now that I look at this scene, I can tell that this was a kind decision made on the spur of the moment. Their ability to improvise on the spot may have been prompted by the discovery of Lady Kukaku. This is a very dangerous type of enemy to hunt and fight, but it's also a lot of fun for me and my men to hunt them. If I want to hunt them successfully, I need to know about them. Ban, we ought to be searching for them. They must have come a long way by now. No, you forget that the people who did this are with them. Until we know who we are fighting against and how to defeat them, we cannot afford to lose any more of our men to these people." The rest of his crew who had helped them rescue Lady Kukaku had gone back to the shipping docks to await pickup, so Jack acted as a guide for the assassins and Lady Kukaku as they made their way through the crowds in an attempt to find a place where the resistance had a strong presence and could help them. A few times, he thought he had lost the three warriors he had brought, but they periodically reappeared from within the crowds, keeping him and the two people he was protecting within sight. When he finally located the shop he was looking for, he hurried them in as quickly as he could, and to his surprise, the three assassins were waiting for him inside. He was genuinely taken aback by their skill in the art of stealth. They could tell he was going to ask a question when Raven briefly silenced Jack with his hand before saying, Although I am quite old, Captain, I have never lost my ability to blend in with the crowd. After all, who do you think taught them how to do the same? I only knew the old Aqua Ninja units were capable of that. My wife used to be one before she was murdered, he said, unable to come up with a suitable response. We should be safe here for the time being, though, because I think you three did it far better than they ever did. And it's nice to see you again, Lady Kukaku. I only wish the situation had been better. The young woman was genuinely shocked to see the young captain standing in front of her again. Her 7-year-old son was obviously unaware of what was really happening. Mother, why does he call you lady? Is it because of your loyalty or something? The voice of a man in his late 60s said, because she is a young one, just as you are as well. He then walked up to the shop's front door, locked it, turned to face everyone, and was pleased to see that Jack had safely returned to his home country, but he was also pleased to see the legitimate rulers of the Land of Water standing in front of him. However, one of the biggest shocks and pleasures for him was seeing 3 assassins in his shop, including one he recognized. Raven, is that you? It is agreeable to see you again, my old friend. I see that the years have been quite kind to you. I have had to witness numerous innocent people perish at the hands of these Templars, which is not as nice as I would like it to be, my old friend. Everyone, please go to the back, it's much safer there. The current water daimyo Sato himself was in charge of overseeing potential invasion sites into the lands of Spring and the lands of Waves as they entered one of the many war rooms where Aizen and Bane walked. The corridors were lined with the special Red Guard who protected the daimyo's palace and himself at all times. It was very rare for one of them to be sent on a mission, but it usually meant the target would be killed. No matter how good the Red Guard were, they knew they were no match for the 2 men walking down the corridor. I hear you had a bit of trouble today, Bane, and someone was actually trying to kill you as well, he said, looking them both in the eyes. I never imagined that I would live to witness the day when someone would grow so large that they would attempt to murder you. It seems that you nearly had my sister.in.law and that brat of hers, but I guess I was mistaken about that one. Where are they now? We think she is with the people who destroyed one of our local garrison towers, and it seems that on one of their patrols they found her there buying food in the market, which happened to be right next to the tower, said Bane, who was the first to speak. Regretfully, I think Captain Jack Webb has also brought a new type of enemy to the Land of Water. Webb, I remember you telling me that once he left our lands, Aizen, he would not pose a threat to us. However, he is now one of the 7 Mariner Lords who have assigned a price to each of us in retribution for our actions. And from what I remember, you killed his wife, so this pirate has a huge bounty on your head. He's now assisting her in avoiding me. You are aware that we will all be killed if she takes power, aren't you? Aizen was limited to nodding his head. All right, now double your efforts and find her, said Sato with a smile that could only be described as menacing. We're running a little behind schedule, so hurry up. Has anyone been able to find the stronghold of the resistance? We still cannot locate it, Lord Sato, but we will double our efforts, Aizen replied. I like to hear that Aizen starts working right away, so you'd better show me some results. With a dark smile and a faint laugh, he concluded, Ban, I would like you to stay for a moment. I want to hear more about this new enemy. They had been in the old man's shop for a few minutes and were waiting for someone from the resistance to arrive. When the back door opened, a young woman wearing a blue battle dress and red flowing hair entered the room. She was ecstatic to see Kukaku and exclaimed, My lady, it is a pleasure to see you once more. I came as soon as I could. She turned to the shopkeeper and said, I thought those stories of the assassins you told us were just that, stories. She was startled to see 3 odd-hooded individuals standing off in a corner, appearing poised for any kind of action. As she approached them and introduced herself, he told her, I can assure you, May, that these people are no stories that stand before you now, and they are the real thing. My name is May, and I am one of the 4 leaders of the resistance here in the capital, she said. Personally, I believe that you were merely tales he would share with us. Raven Uzumaki is the name we nearly wore. These are my students, and I am currently their mentor and leader of the Assassin's Brotherhood and Sisterhood. Then Yugito and Washi came forward and said, My name is Washi Naruto Uzumaki. And I am Yugito ni. Mei turned her full attention to Kukaku, saying, My lady, we have been searching for you for a long time now. We feared that Sato had succeeded in killing you and your child. She was shocked to learn that any members of the Uzumaki clan had survived the attack on their home village and country, and she was inspired by the stories she had heard about the assassins working from the shadows to preserve mankind's freedom. The young boy was speechless. He had heard tales of the late daimyo's wife dying at the hands of bloodline users, but it was shocking to him to learn that his own mother was the legitimate ruler of this nation. It was a bit overwhelming for a child of that age, and all he could think was, "Can someone please tell me what the hell is going on?" "Watch that mouth of yours, young man. I don't want to hear that kind of language from you," Kukaku said firmly as she turned to face her son. However, his mother said, "You have a right to know who we really are, Toshiro, and if you three have come to help liberate our country as I believe, then you all have a right to know what happened to this country as well." After seeing this, she decided it was time to share her story with him. "It was different back then. Despite our ninja village's bloody reputation, we were a land at peace," she said, drawing everyone to her or sitting down to listen to her tale. "My spouse had recently been named the new land and water daimyo. And we start working together with the daimyo of the land of snow and our new Mizukage to make our futures better than they were before. For them, that means a generator that might finally give them a real spring, and for us, it means being able to help those who are less fortunate and in need." I laughed when someone even claimed that we were attempting to create the ideal world. However, everything changed when we discovered I was expecting my son here just before his due date. At that point, we were truly rocking. "So what took place?" Yugito inquired. With a hint of resentment in her voice, she stated, "My brother.in.law Sato, he and the Springs daimyo's brother happened. Despite my desire to forget, I can still clearly recall every detail of that day. We were in the daimyo's palace courtyard, meeting with the Mizukage, who was a Jinchuriki of the three-tailed turtle, and a number of clan heads with bloodline connections who had come to discuss the future of the village hidden in the mist. We saw them both enter at that point. Sato was a general in our standing army and a skilled combatant. He even employed the Red Guard, his own division, against us on that particular day." She reenacted the entire incident in her mind as she related it to them. At one point, she was laughing and clutching her fetus while laughing at the antics of their guests. She then sensed a presence and turned to see her brother.in.law, dressed in an odd sort of armor, enter the courtyard with a distinct goal in his eyes. "Dude. Yes. Are you in favor of me establishing real peace and order in the world?" The daimyo was a bit taken aback by this question and simply replied, "Yeah." Her voice then narrated over the scene playing out in her mind as she told her story to the people before. "It was a coup. I saw the Red Guard coming out of everywhere. He activated something on the armor that then created a helmet to protect his face in the upcoming battle, and she immediately became concerned about her well-being and that of her family. He had obviously been preparing this for a while. At that point, I noticed that your father had called in the ninjas and instructed them to get you and me out of there. I had never seen a red eye like that before, but that's when I saw the man in the mask grab the Mizukage and make him look into his eyes. He told us to flee before he became the masked man's slave, and I could see that he was corrupting that man. As your uncle approached him, I watched snow ninjas seize your father and hold him there. He repeatedly asked him, why, throughout the entire ordeal. I was removed by the bloodline users after witnessing his own brother murder him. They sent me off with people they could trust to keep me safe until you were born because one of the clans that had the ability to control their bones and do things with them decided to fight back and reclaim my throne for me." Sato was aware, however, that the truth about his actions would soon be known by all the bloodline clans. He gave the order to eradicate them because he never liked them anyhow. Then Jack declared, "The Purge, did he attempt to eradicate them?" Washi inquired. "Genocide, indeed. Only a small number of clans remain today after many have been destroyed. Since the capital was a bigger location and easier to hide from, they eventually smuggled me in. The majority of them are the leaders of the resistance movement opposing Sato's rule. However, he continued to search for us. He is aware that we can contest his authority and end him permanently," she remarked. Mei, who was even more shocked by her story, chose to inform them of the terrible reality of what was about to happen. "I'm afraid to say that your survival may be a moot point by this time, my lady. We recently received word from one of our spies that Sato has been preparing some kind of invasion force that he intends to use within the next 2 months. We just don't know his intended target yet." Raven decided to ask this young woman a few more questions after realizing how crucial their presence was. "So he intends to bring war upon a new land. We must stop him while there is time, and to do that we will need your help in this endeavor, Mei," Raven said. We can't stop him now because he is too strong and plans to start another war in another country. Are you three crazy? Right now, our only option is to hide from him and his troops. I take it for his plans to succeed he needs total control of this city, which means whenever his building is really close by. Washi then made the decision to ask her. Yes, we know that much. All right. My dear Yugito, would you like to join me in bringing some chaos to their order so that this nation can be freed? She smiled at him and replied, of course. This startled Mei, who started to utter, are you two insane? They're going to murder you two? That would be unlikely, Raven told her, adding, and you really ought to have listened more to the stories my old friend was telling. The assassins are going to give your tyrant a bloody nose. The two assassins had chosen to take down the two towers at roughly the same time because it would keep the garrisons busy and prevent them from keeping an eye on the other tower for their planned attack. Washi and Yugito were now standing atop one of the many buildings that had a clear line of sight view of the control towers that dotted the skyline of the capital city of Water Country. As Yugito noted, this will be no walk in the park for us, but it's also clear that they haven't learned to expect the unexpected. Sentries had been walking the roofs of the buildings in the immediate area of the towers, and it was evident that they were on edge because one of the towers had already fallen that day. We'll eliminate as many of the guards as we can before we reach the towers, Washi told her. Imagine it as one of the drills Raven would give us. Taking out as many of the guards as possible without being noticed should be the first goal. After that, we should target the captain of the garrison, blow up the towers, and then hunt as many of Sato's men as we can. Would you accept the challenge? As she turned to face him, she grinned broadly and said, oh, I'm game. Before he could ask Bane another question, he heard a loud explosion and rushed out onto one of the palace's many balconies to look out upon his city, only to discover that two of his towers had just collapsed upon themselves. Sato had listened to everything Bane had told him about the warriors who had destroyed the tower and killed nearly 2 full garrisons of his men, and he was aware that if they were not stopped soon, it would be disastrous for his plans and his control of the city. He turned to Bane and said in a commanding voice, take an entire squad of the Red Guard and kill them. I don't care how you do it, with a look of hatred on his face that was startling to say the least. Simply finish it. My lord, I am delighted. In no time at all, Washi and Yugito had taken down the towers. The guards had been temporarily increased, but not enough to prevent the 2 highly skilled assassins from destroying them and killing their captains. They had remained in the immediate vicinity of one of the towers to see how the daimyo would react, and the reinforcements quickly arrived on the scene. That must be the Red Guard we have heard so much about, and that guy again. They noticed regular soldiers strolling alongside a group of soldiers wearing impressive-looking weapons and heavy-duty red armor. At the head of this group was the man who had escaped Raven's killing shot. While we watch the fight from a distance, I believe we should test them by sending some shadow clones down there to engage them. We need to ask Mei some questions when we return, so that we can withdraw much more quickly and rejoin the others. As she nodded to him and started practicing the jutsu with him, while she observed the 2 clones moving toward the enemy forces directly beneath them. The people who saw the Red Guard patrolling their streets fled, knowing that no one had ever defeated the evil daimyo's crack troops. Many of them had hid in alleys and shops to watch the impending battle. Bane walked in front of his battalion of Red Guard, which was made up of more than 20 men and 8 regular city guards. The Red Guard was currently patrolling the area that had once housed one of their great towers that allowed them to control this great city. Then, as they entered the market square, they noticed 2 people standing on top of the buildings, watching them like a hawk, wearing strange battle outfits with hoods. Bane could see that they were also wearing slightly different outfits, and that the woman in white was obviously a woman. The Red Guard prepared for battle as soon as they saw them, and they watched in awe as the 2 warriors seemed to just jump right off the buildings, heating the ground as if it were nothing, and standing up as dust and dirt flew up into the air around them. This was, to say the least, a little frightening. The 2 warriors swiftly removed their weapons, and the man in black took out 2 rather dangerous-looking swords with a strange symbol that looked like an A with the middle part of the letter missing, and inside was a strange symbol he had seen once before. The woman also produced what appeared to be a long whip, but it was actually a strange circular object in the man's hands, and a smile plastered on their faces as she gestured for them to come and get it. The 8 regular city guards, not waiting for Bane's orders, hurried the 2 warriors, but the man threw the circular object to the ground right in front of them, causing it to explode into a cloud of smoke that made them cough and stagger around. When the smoke cleared, the Red Guard were shocked to their cores as they watched the carnage in front of them. To Bane's amazement, the two warriors rushed straight into the cloud itself, and they could hear the sounds of the 8 city guards being cut to pieces. One of them managed to escape, but it was obvious that he was not okay because he started coughing up blood, and then his knees buckled and gave out under his weight, hitting the ground hard, causing parts of his upper body to just slide off as he had been broken up by the two warriors. The Red Guard immediately went into a defensive ring because they knew very little about their enemy. They only knew that they were very skilled and that the well-trained city guard, who could handle almost anything, were no match for these warriors that stood before them. Even Bane was getting ready for the battle, so he gave the order for the two far ends of the formation to attack the strange warriors. However, they were unprepared for the woman to use her whip in a way that made it almost like a living creature, which also made it unpredictable, as the first guard to come into contact with it was literally cut in two from shoulder to waist. His partner managed to deflect the weapon, moved to a safe distance, if only for a moment, and then launched another attack to exact revenge on his comrade. By now 2 others had joined in on the attack only to discover that the whip, which should have given them the advantage in this confrontation, as they were not a normally used weapon by any means, since they are more commonly well known as a long-range offense weapon and were difficult to control, leaving many openings, would give one of them the opportunity to kill the woman, but were finding this not the case with this particular weapon, as it seemed to move on its own, blocking every one of their attempts to move in on her and take her out. The Red Guard were unprepared for an opponent of this caliber and eventually began to make mistakes, proving that they were in fact mortal. She managed to wrap her whip around one of them, brought her hand back hard, cutting him into pieces, as she then made another moment with her hand, forcing part of the whip to hit one of the other guards in the face so hard that it knocked him out cold and severely damaged the armored face mask he had been wearing, and the same movement brought another part of the whip slashing by another guard's throat, cutting it open for all the world to see. The guards who attacked the Black Warrior understood that he was a close-in fighter because this was similar to their own training, so they moved in to take him out. However, before they could even do so, he had already rushed in and killed the first 2 guards, revealing that these 2 warriors had clearly received elemental ninja training and were much more dangerous because this was their armor's one major weakness. The rest of the guards realized the danger and began attacking their opponents in large numbers. The woman was the first to be struck by a lucky guard strike, but she exploded in a cloud of smoke, indicating that she had been a clone of some sort, distracting the Black Warrior enough to be taken out as well, exploding in a similar display, leaving only smoke behind. At this point, Bane realized he had to return to Sado as soon as possible and inform him of this new development, because he recognized the fighting styles the warriors had used, and because only 2 shadow clones had killed all but 8 of the city guards who had come with his 20+ Red Guards. Only 7 of the 20 Red Guards who had accompanied him on this mission were unharmed, and 2 more were seriously injured. She turned to him and said, "They were tougher than we thought. It was a good thing we sent those shadow clones in instead of ourselves." Washi and Yugito were already on their way to the shop where Raven and the resistance leader Mei were currently located when they were given the memories of their clones. "Yes, but they'll be prepared for us, Yugito, the next time. We must start recruiting new members of the Brotherhood right away if we are to save these people. It will take time, but eventually the Red Guard and their evil leader will be overthrown, and the Templars will no longer have control over this land. You are an idiot, Mei. You put us all in tremendous danger by coming here to even see if she was the real thing. It could have been another trap set so they could kill us," said Lady Kukaku, who was standing next to the door and listening to the argument going on inside. The 2 of them entered the store right away, only to be met by the sounds of arguing coming from the next room. "Have you ever given that one any thought?" Then they heard Mei respond in a furious tone, "Like you? You never once questioned their story or even bothered to search for her. You just believe the stories that she died in a horrible accident. Since we now know that the assassins are real, you didn't even believe the shopkeeper's stories about them, so I was right and you were completely mistaken. Those 3 are not assassins, Mei. Please. Nobody else but ourselves will save us or free this nation. We've had multiple opportunities to retaliate against him, but you all hide and keep us back by claiming that it's too risky. Raw, you have harmed us more than they have, and I know that my faction and I have had enough of you. You little bitch, how dare you say that to me?" Raven grabbed his hand before he could strike her, applying pressure to slightly injure the man and forcing him to face the elderly assassin. I would show some restraint if I were you, or you will have to answer to this imaginary assassin and his students, Raven said. After Ra was able to free his arm from Raven's hold, he saw Washi and Yugito enter the room with Kukaku right behind them. Looking at the other two assassins, he saw that they could easily kill him if he tried to hurt his fellow resistance leader. Before Ra could speak to the elderly assassin, he was interrupted by a voice that said, "I agree with Mei that they are not just stories, and she is right, you have proven to be great problem to us all." The speaker was a tall, dark-skinned man with slicked back blonde hair and a pair of night-sky black glasses that obscured his face from view. He turned to face the assassins and said, "It is a pleasure to meet you three. My name is Tensa." "It's good to see you've come, Sensei," Mei said as she approached him. "But what kept you coming here for so long?" "I wanted to let everyone know that the assassins killed over 10 red guards and destroyed 2 more towers while I was praising their diligence. Now that I think about it, Ra, you mentioned that no one person could accomplish that. Will they? And I'm aware that I was observing them while they were doing it. To help them enter and exit more quickly, I even had my resistance group set up a little detour in a nearby location." "Is that true, Tensa?" said the lone man who had not yet introduced himself. "Yes. Then, I'm Kale, one of the 4 resistance leaders, and I'm delighted to meet you three. Could you tell me your names?" After bowing to him, the 3 assassins each introduced themselves, saying, "My name is Raven Uzumaki, and I am the current leader and mentor of the Assassin's Brotherhood." "Washi Naruto Uzumaki. Yugito ni." Ra went on to say, "We are putting ourselves in even greater danger by having 2 Jinchuriki and an elderly man from a deceased clan here who are supposed to be here to save us. In actuality, I made a mistake by coming here, and I will no longer put my resistance faction in danger with this idiot's tales of heroes who brave the dark to serve the light. We have to hide from them, which is absurd. I have to go now, and I'll be taking the Lady Daimyo with me. There are 3 factions of the resistance in addition to yours, so you're not going to get your way this time. However, we will do everything in our power to protect her and her son, and I have no doubt that the assassins will do the same." "All right," he said, letting out a little growl before leaving the room, "but you'd better protect her or I'll kill you all." He then left the room, leaving no trace behind. Raven approached the other 3 resistance leaders, and Mei responded to his implicit query by saying, "As you can see, Master Assassin, we are divided into 4 factions and we don't always get along. We usually need to agree on a plan of action and then vote on it in order to carry it out, which has made trying to free our homeland all but impossible. Usually, they are thought to be too risky, and it is best if we do nothing." Ra, the recently departed resistance leader, typically claims that playing is the only way to win because it will guarantee our complete destruction. I suspect he won't assist us and might even attempt to incite opposition to you. So each of you has been forced to work together by him even when there was a chance at victory. Why? Raven asked, turning to face the other 2 faction head leaders. Tensa responded, "Unfortunately, his men will stop us if we attempt to operate him alone because he has the stronger faction Master Assassin. Thankfully, he hasn't been able to attack anyone since Sato ordered the city to go into lockdown. Fortunately, each resistance group has a unique area of expertise, and we have relationships with other guilds in this city." "And what would these guilds be?" Kale made the decision to respond to this query. "Mei here obtains intelligence from the Cornerstones. Tensa works with the Thieves Guild, and my faction primarily deals with mercenaries and their bounty hunters who do not collaborate with the one known as Bane." Ra believed that these organizations were beneath him or that the information they provided was untrustworthy, so he would never accept their assistance. He declined to form an alliance. Washi then posed the following query: "How can someone win a war if they have no allies? I assume that if we are to assist you in this, we will need to create our own guild if we are to lift this nation out of its downward spiral." "Yes, and if you have already started down that path, our adversaries have been shown to be vulnerable for the first time. Additionally, you have demonstrated for the first time that the fabled Red Guard are mortal and subject to death. They must now understand your values after seeing your work. You need to introduce yourself to the populace. Many people will help you in the future and you can restore your order if you 3 can accomplish this." The proprietor then told them, "If you are to rebuild the Brotherhood, then you will need the proper place to do it, and it just so happens that your primary den is still safe and sound thanks to me. Here are your keys and I will assist you with whatever supplies you may need. I also know several armor and weapons specialists throughout the city who will assist you." Washi turned to the door as he started to leave, happy that they already had a place of their own. He knew exactly what he was going to do, but Yugito grabbed him and asked, "What are you up to?" "Don't worry about me, kitten. I'll be fine. I'm going to make the world aware of our presence. Assist our mentor in preparing the den for its initial group of recruits." She gave a nod, then turned to stand beside Raven. The shopkeeper approached him and gave him a map of the Land of Water's capital, saying, "You must know where you are going to get to your new home. This will lead you there." Washi nodded to the shopkeeper and then left through the back door, ran up the nearest building to the roof, and started looking for a place to advertise his people. After a minute or so, he came upon a large market square that appeared to be peaceful at first, but then he saw 6 red guards enter and start harassing the people there. Washi realized that, just as the resistance leader Ra had stopped the other 3 factions from fighting back, there were quite a few people who, based on the appearance of things, wanted to fight back against the tyrant of this country, but had been given no motivation or hope to do so. He determined that this was the ideal moment to intervene and make his presence known to the world and the Brotherhood, and he set up his position so that he could simply jump down upon his enemies. 2 red guards soon came within range of him, at which point he swiftly activated his hidden blades and made a bold leap, burying the 2 blades in the back of the guards' necks, instantly killing them as he came to a sudden stop on the ground and raised himself to full height, ready for battle at any time. The other 4 red guards turned quickly to see what was happening and felt a new level of fear come over them as they saw one of the people who had killed so many of their friends that day. Instead of coming up with a plan, they rushed in, lowering their anger, hatred, and fear to control them, but their training was still dominant because they proved to be quite a match for the young assassin. However, the guards were unaware that the assassins were trained in both offensive and defensive abilities, so they didn't have to wait long, as the first one of them tried to impale him through the chest with his battle staff. Washi quickly grabbed the weapon and broke the man's hold on it, then swiftly took it as his own, quickly tripping 2 of the guards with a single sweeping motion before impaling the guard through the chest with his own weapon. Washi felt a sharp blow to his face as he turned to face his next assailant. One of the red guards let his fear and rage cloud his judgment and launched the attack without understanding the consequences of his actions, leaving him open to the assassin's hidden blade, which buried it deep into his chest and instantly killed him. When the last 2 guards realized they were up against an enemy who could change their strategy at the drop of a hat, they immediately went into defensive mode, waiting for him to initiate contact. Unfortunately, the disarmed guard decided he wanted revenge and rushed the assassin, who immediately dropped him to the ground and brought his foot down, crushing his larynx, making it impossible for the man to continue breathing normally because the thick mask they had chosen for protection was now preventing him from breathing. When the final guard saw that the man's face was covered in blood, he realized that he had also defeated 5 of the best red guards. Realizing that he was no match for this man, he dropped his weapons and fled as fast as he could. Washi felt the man's face and saw that a scar had formed, realizing that it looked like 3 of his ancestors. He grinned and laughed, then said, in a sort of way, to his tenant, "Very funny, Kurama." After noticing that a number of people were making remarks about the Assassin's Brotherhood or the Uzumaki clan in the square, he made the decision to address the crowd and offer them what might be their first hope in years. "My name is Washi Naruto Uzumaki of the Brotherhood of Assassins. Because he is not your legitimate ruler, we will continue to fight your despotic ruler. Earlier today, we were able to save Lady Kukaku from them thanks to your resistance. Here in the Land of Water, our Brotherhood will start the battle for human freedom. If you would like to assist us in rescuing your nation from the Templars' oppression, then come and help us liberate the Land of Water." A young woman with a scar across her cheek stood up and looked him in the eyes before saying, "We have heard the stories of your kind assassin and we will join you in your fight for our homeland and any others that may come." A number of people approached him from the crowd and bowed before him. After grinning at them, he said, "Are you all certain you want to do this? You will need to put in a lot of training, and this will not be an easy life." He gestured for them to follow him to the den after they all nodded their heads in agreement. The look on Bane's face was what really shocked him, so he decided to ask what was on his mind and said, "You seem troubled, Bane." Bane walked beside Sado as they observed the scene in front of them. Sado would not have thought that his red guards could be defeated so easily by a group of foreign warriors who had already become a major thorn in his side. "I may have every reason to be as well as you." Sado took notice of this and inquired, "What do you mean?" "My father, who also helped you gain power, told me about a certain clan that ought to be exterminated in case they managed to survive. I regret to inform you that I believe they have returned. He taught me to identify their fighting style and clothing type. If this is accurate, we are in grave danger because these assassins are their natural enemies. What was this clan's name? The Uzumaki clan. I always thought the stories of the assassins were just that, stories, Sato said, halting him in his tracks. However, you're telling me that the Templar's greatest enemy, who has somehow managed to live to this day, has come back to destroy us. If only we knew who these new assassins were, we would be able to fight back more effectively. Bane was only able to nod his head when he recalled that there was one last Uzumaki in the Hidden Leaf village, but that boy was too young to be the assassin he had seen that day and realized another had also survived. My lords, 5 of the Red Guard that were on a routine patrol outside of the palace walls were slain by an unknown individual in any black battle outfit with a hood on and then claimed to be an assassin and then proceed to introduce himself to the people, the soldier said, running up to them and bowing, making it obvious that something had happened. What was his name? Washi Naruto Uzumaki. When Washi and the new recruits first entered the den, they were astounded by its enormous size. Washi looked around the den and was, to put it mildly, impressed. With a whistling sound, Washi thought, "We assassins sure know how to build things." The voice of a woman said, "Yes you do." However, Raven was the first to say, "I see that you have successfully brought us some new recruits, but I am afraid that your day is not over just yet." Washi and the recruits turned to see Raven and Yugito approaching them, along with Mei and 2 women he did not recognize. "Washi, let me introduce you to Rosa, the leader of the Courtesans Guild, and this is the Cat, the leader of the Thieves Guild," Mei said as she approached him with the 2 women. Then, with a tone of urgency, Cat said, "It is a pleasure to meet you, Master Assassin, but I am afraid that I will have to keep our introductions short as there is a matter that requires your immediate attention." They were both bound to him. He asked her, "And that would be Master Thief? There is still one tower you must destroy today, but before you do that you must save the people inside, including the host of the 7-tailed beetle before she is used as a bargaining chip for the organization now known as the..." The thief and courtesan leaders were taken aback when Yugito and Washi simultaneously exclaimed, "The Akatsuki!" It was obvious to them that the two had had some unpleasant interactions with the group. "Where is this tower that we might save our fellow host and the people who are held there?" Washi asked, glaring directly into the cat's eyes. "What do you wish of me, my master?" the cat asked, snapping her fingers as she realized how crucial this was to them. A young woman wearing form-fitting clothes then rushed into the room and bowed to the woman waiting for her orders. "Do I look like I'm from Star Wars, Momo?" the cat asked, rolling her eyes at the young woman's choice of words. She answered, "Sometimes, my master. This is not the time to be cute with me, Momo. These 2 need to be taken to the tower where the Jinchuriki of the 7-tailed beetle is being held. Be quick about it as time is not our ally right now." The cat growled in frustration before saying to Momo. After saying this, the young woman's attitude abruptly changed, and she gestured for them to follow her. To the surprise of the young thieves, they had little trouble keeping up with her, though occasionally she found it difficult because of their determined expressions. It was obvious that another tower would be destroyed today, and she would have front-row seats to the event that was about to take place. One of the reasons that there are so many towers here is to keep the mercenary guild in check. If they had free run of the city, they could help the resistance and us out much more than they already can. As a result, they are basically trapped in that section, unable to assist anyone. When they noticed that they were about to be asked a question, Momo decided to respond as best she could, saying, "Aside from the number of towers by the palace, this is the highest concentration in all of the towers in the capital city. In order to prevent one of their kind from being used as a negotiating chip or to enable the Akatsuki to carry out their plans, both assassins put this away for future inquiries and concentrated on the current mission. That's the tower she is being held in at this time, but you must hurry. They are planning to move her to the palace as soon as possible for holding," Momo said as they gazed out at the scene in front of them, pointing to a single tower that seemed larger than the others. Washi asked her, "What are the differences like?" "There is an equivalent of 4 garrisons guarding this tower. I and the other thieves are going to create a diversion, so hopefully you 2 can safely make it inside and only have 2 garrisons to contend with. And there is also this," she said. "This should help you destroy the tower when you're making your escape. Just remember that it has a 2-minute delay and cannot be stopped once you activate the bomb's fuse." The two assassins were taken aback when she handed them what appeared to be a huge bomb. "I thank you for all you and your guild has done for us, and how soon can we expect that distraction?" Washi asked her after hastily putting the bomb in one of his many utility pockets. In order to give the assassins the time they needed to finish their mission, she told him, "Just give us a minute starting now." She did this as she leapt off the roof they had been standing on and encountered a small group of thieves who, coincidentally, engaged several of the guards, stole items from them, and fled in the opposite direction. Without hesitation, the two of them then took a leap of faith and quickly blended in with the crowd, allowing them to enter the tower undetected. As they proceeded deeper into the tower, they swiftly and silently eliminated every guard they came across. After killing a few more guards, they eventually arrived at a section of the tower that appeared to have been built to house people for extended periods of time. It was evident to them that there were still multiple bodies inside some of the cells that had been allowed to rot and decay. Washi had already used his eagle vision to guide them on their quest to find the host of the seven-tailed beetle who was currently being held here. To avoid being distracted or giving away their position, Yugito covered her nose right away. To their dismay, they discovered that no one had survived their ordeal in this place of hell, but then they heard what could only be described as a cruel man's laughter and a young woman's voice begging to be released. "Please let me go, I have done nothing wrong. Oh my dear, we know who you are. When my colleagues return, we will be transferring you to the palace where you will be held until we return you to your home village because of the bounty on your head," the man replied to her. The guard was unaware that Yugito had silently and swiftly approached from behind and, in a single, fluid motion, snapped his neck, instantly killing him. She then proceeded to spend time on the body and uttered the words, "Bastard." Washi hurried to the front of the cell, and with a single flick of his concealed blade, the door opened, allowing him and Yugito to get their first close-up view of this young woman who was exactly like them. Her eyes were a bright orange, and her hair was neon light green. "Who are you?" she asked, glancing directly into the eyes of the two assassins. "Two people who are exactly like you in every way, even down to our burden." The idea that there were people in the world who were just like her shocked her more than she could have ever dreamed. With an expression of amazement on her face as she inspected them thoroughly, Washi opened the door for her to exit and asked, "What village are you guys from?" "We're not from or affiliated with any ninja village, not anymore," he stated to her. However, Yugito cut Fu off before she could question them further, saying, "I know that you must have many questions for us, but we must make our escape as soon as possible before the guards discover our presence here and call for backup. Don't worry about me. I can keep up with you too. I was trained as a ninja in my old village," she said, turning to them after quickly picking up a bag that was obviously hers and taking something out of it that was directed to her pack. The bag looked like a strange circular disc with a green lining in the middle. They both nodded for her to follow them as they hurried out of the tower's detention center. Sadly, they ran straight into the center of the two garrisons that were still there in the courtyard. This is when a rather well-dressed man left the group, stood in front of them, grinning, and said, "I don't know who you two are, but if you surrender right now I will make your deaths quick and painless, and as for you my little beetle, you have a date with the Lord Daimyo himself." He said this with a sense of superiority toward him. As soon as Washi gave Yugito the bomb, he stepped out in front of the two women, took the two swords off his back, and started channeling his wind chakra into them. As he got ready to fight their enemies, she immediately started searching for a way out of the courtyard where they were currently stranded. When Yugito realized they had little time to pull this off, she turned to Fu and told the young girl, who was no older than herself, "I need you to cover me while I set this up." Yugito knew that if they were to escape the tower, they would have to summon one of the eagles and destroy it at the same time. "What are you doing?" With a hint of worry in her tone, Fu asked. "Oh, I see." She told her fellow host, "I'm just setting a very big-ass bomb to destroy this tower. Nothing much, why do you ask?" Naturally taken aback by her words, Fu looked over to see the other assassin pair fight the board that had imprisoned her against her will. In order to give Yugito the time she needed to set the bomb and prepare their escape route, Washi wasted no time in engaging his enemies. Fu watched in awe as Washi started to kill his enemies without feeling guilty because the things they had done were, to put it mildly, horrible. Washi used his wind chakra to make his weapons more deadly and had become so proficient at using it that he no longer needed hand seals to execute his wind jutsu. The soldiers who were left alive watched their former prisoner and the two strange warriors fly out of sight on the back of the great summoner animal before they realized something had been left behind. Yugito set off the bomb, then summoned one of the eagles to serve as their escape route. He swiftly grabbed Fu and climbed onto the giant raptor's back as it started to fly up in the air and made a pass to pick up Washi on its way out of the tower's upper courtyard. As they flew away from the tower that had served as her prison just 5 minutes prior, Fu was startled to find herself on the back of this enormous summoner. When she turned around, she saw that a sizable portion of the tower had exploded, causing the remainder of it to collapse in on itself, killing the malevolent man who had held her there. As they flew through the city's skies, Fu clung to Yugito as tightly as she could. At that moment, the great eagle made a soaring power dive straight into an alley and came to rest on the ground with ease. Together with the two warriors who had rescued her, Fu disembarked from the eagle's back and saw one in black approach it and say, "I thank you, my friend. Tell your father I hope to see him again soon." As the two warriors gestured for her to follow them out of the alleyway and into the crowded city streets on their way back to the den, the great eagle bowed its head to them and vanished in a cloud of smoke. She walked very close to them as they appeared to blend in with the crowd. Before she could even ask a question, he said, "I know that you must have many questions for us, but it is not safe to talk in the open right now. Also do as we do and we will make it there even with the increase of the guards." Washi could tell she was becoming anxious as they made their way back to the den through the crowds because of the sheer number of city guardsmen who were now patrolling the city in full force due to the events of the day. After giving him a nod, she said, "I understand. Can you believe what's happened today?" Fu asked as they walked through the area, listening to what people had to say about the day's events. "Do you think the resistance is finally making their move, given how crazy today has been?" "No, they have abandoned us to the jackals for too long. I believe that someone new has made the decision to begin retaliating." "Can you believe this is all happening?" she asked, listening to the conversation as Fu and the two assassins made their way to the den. "Not really, they've done this for far too long and we finally reached the breaking point." "So, do you think the assassins' stories are true?" "Yes, with all that has happened it's hard not to believe that someone has come to finally liberate us from our tormentors." After listening to this conversation, Fu came to the realization that the two people who were escorting her to safety were also the ones who had started to bring some hope back to this troubled city. "I hope you are right, my friend." After navigating through the crowd, they came to a plain-looking wall with a small red symbol that she had never seen before. To her surprise, the two warriors walked straight through the wall, revealing a high-level genjutsu in action. The alleyway appeared to be somewhat hidden from view. When she saw them walking straight through a heavily reinforced door, she followed them without hesitation. She was astounded by the size of the room in front of her and could only mutter to herself about it. The voice behind her made her jump. "You must be the host of the Seven Tails young lady," and she turned to see an elderly man dressed similarly to the two who had rescued her. "Hi, it's Fu by the way," she said, smiling at him. "It is a pleasure to finally meet you, Ms. Fu. My name is Raven, and I believe you have already met my two students, Washi and Yugito," he said after giving her a nod. She had never seen Yugito before, but she had seen the man before, and she was shocked to see that he was none other than Naruto Uzumaki, the hero of the hidden waterfall village, when they approached her and took off their hoods to reveal their faces for the first time. "You are Waterfall's hero, Naruto Uzumaki." As she started to jump up and down with joy at seeing her hero in front of her, Fu exclaimed, "It's really you. Something tells me I'm going to want to hear about this one later," Yugito said, turning to face her boyfriend. Fu rushed up to him and began to embrace him enthusiastically before he could respond. She then released him and moved aside as Kat and Rosa approached them. Washi raised his hand before Kat could ask them where the others were, saying, "I'm afraid we were unable to find any other survivors. We were lucky to get her in time, but the tower is destroyed and the garrisons inside it are dead." Kat approached them and bowed her head in respect for at least trying to find any survivors, saying, "I thank you for at least trying to save them." She was disappointed to hear this, but she also realized that there was little chance of saving those people. "You're welcome, we just wish we could have done more for them," he replied. "You too killed those men who've done such great evil, Washi. It's a start, at least never forget that," Kat replied. After that, Raven gestured for them to follow him to a dining table so they could discuss upcoming events and things. Kat and Rosa sat down at the table while a Washi clone brought them all herbal tea before dissipating in a cloud of smoke. Raven then drank some of his tea and stated, "We have successfully begun to restore hope to this city, but unless we can destroy who is causing all of the pain that is happening here, we will never be able to free this country once and for all." "You mean to chop off the snake's head so the body will die?" Kat was the first to realize where this was headed. "No, the Templars are more like a hydra than a snake," said Washi next. "If you cut off one head, 2 more will grow in its place, but if you cut off the right head, the remaining heads won't grow back and their actions will be hampered." Rosa then said, "You mean to kill the people who allow Sado to remain in power, thereby taking it from him as well?" After recognizing the direction of their questioning. "Yes, we do, but to do this we must know our enemy and when to strike them down," Yugito replied. The devil himself would be envious of Kat's sudden smile as she said, "I think I can help with that one. In 1 week's time we will have the Festival of Aqua, which will be held in the water district not too far from here. One of our numerous targets will be there and vulnerable, I take it?" Raven said, taking a sip of his tea and nodding his head. "Very, his name is Obero and he is the man in charge of the Grand Navy's operations and running. Without him Sado will have a much harder time trying to control the Navy and the ports which are under their control, which will in turn give us the freedom we need to move about city as well to get things in and out of it without them being taken by Sado," Rosa continued. Then Washi said, "How about a substitute?" He then responded, "The only man who could truly replace him will be with him at the festival, which means you can kill 2 birds with 1 stone." After realizing that they had thought about this a lot, Yugito said, "What would happen if someone else took over?" Because of Sado they would have a very hard time trying to do their jobs, as he would micromanage everything since he can't trust them right away, and this is where we gain our advantage," Rosa continued. "However, my thieves will not be able to assist you in this endeavor as they would be spotted almost instantly. Only Rosa's courtesans can assist you in this endeavor," Kat replied. Washi smiled as he recalled one of his ancestors' memories, saying, "I have an idea and a feeling that it will work quite well." "I think you should be safe here for the time being, my lady," Mei said, looking directly into Kukaku's eyes. "Why would that be?" she inquired. Mei replied with a simple, "I don't trust Ra anymore, and he was quite content on taking you with him, my lady." "And I assume that he is aware of the location of your headquarters, everyone?" Kukaku inquired. "He knows where the old ones are, but then we are moving to new ones as we have a feeling that we are being compromised in some fashion. We can't trust him anymore. Ra was never a team player, even when I knew him in the past. However, he always expected people to follow his instructions, so I don't think that has changed at all," Kukaku remarked, her voice tinged with disappointment. Mei raised her eyebrows and then replied, "Sounds about right. When the war first started he was one of the first to start fighting back, but then as time went on he just sort of gave up hope." "Do you really think we'll be safe here? I've heard tales of the assassins before." "Yes, I do, and I believe that what they intend to do will actually result in peace in our nation. It will take a long time for all of us to have an impact." "I hope you're right, Mei." Now, Sado and Bane were standing in a very special room that only the most senior Templars were aware of. The room's purpose was to communicate with the other Templar leaders during crucial moments, and the assassin's return was undoubtedly one of those moments. A number of shadowy figures stood in front of them, each representing a high-level Templar from one of the many elemental nations. While all of the figures had some distinguishing characteristics, the lead figure in the center was the most unusual and enigmatic. He appeared to be the one who was most interested in the reason they had all been called to this meeting. "Sado, why was this meeting called in the first place? I have many important things happening right now with the Akatsuki, so what is going on?" he asked, revealing only a strange spiral-like mask with a single red eye and 3 black talons that circled the center of his face. The first person to speak was Sado. "I'm afraid we have quite a few problems that have occurred. Recently several of the towers had been destroyed here, and it's all thanks to a certain group of individuals with hoods who claim to be assassins." When the lead figure heard this, their eyes widened. "Are you positive it was them?" "Yes, my lord." One of them even introduced himself to the people of Water Country as Washi Naruto Uzumaki. Before he could respond, the 2 figures to his left appeared to be cursing a boy who had fled their village, saying, "At least we know where he is now." The lead figure's eyes widened in shock, then fear. and then narrowed again in an unfathomable amount of anger and hatred due to what he had just learned from his fellow Templar. "And what exactly do you expect us to do about it right now? We are already having enough problems trying to keep the Hokage and Jiraiya from learning about our true plans for the Hidden Leaf Village from being discovered, and let us not forget about that old cripple who should be siding with us at this time and our plans for the Fire Daimyo as well." The elderly woman who spoke. "He should never have left the village in the first place, but you are forgetting that we need him to accomplish our main goals. We will need to send some people to get him back." The figure next to the older female said, "Let's face it, we need him back now, and we need to find the other missing hosts as soon as possible." His voice was urgent. "All but 5 of the Jinchuriki have already been apprehended by us. Only 3 remain unaccounted for." Despite the haziness of his projection, which indicated that he was from the desert, one of the figures said. An additional figure appeared to growl in response to this, before stating patronizingly, "We still have the 8 tails despite the fact we can't get near him right now because of his foolish brother. We believe they had something to do with the disappearance of the 2-tailed host despite the fact we cannot prove it. By saying, there's a good chance that both she and the 7 tails are here as well. I submit that you all should stop this pointless bickering and dispatch your best ninjas to retrieve them before they make a mess of everything we have worked so hard for." Bane made his presence known. "We must not give up now since we are so close to realizing the Moon's Eyes plan." Sato grinned devilishly and enjoyed watching his partner correct the other leaders' behavior, but it also made them more vocal, with many demanding that no one has the right to dictate to them what to do. Their pointless arguing had finally reached a point where the one-eyed figured could take it no more and said, "Enough." He took command of the situation with an air of authority after his outburst, which was sufficient to instantly silence the room. "Bane is right. They must be captured at once or we risk everything we have worked for. I want you to do everything in your power to get rid of these assassins before they pose a serious threat to us, regardless of how you go about doing it. Just send someone to get them as soon as you can. May we be guided by the Father of Understanding." Bane and Sato both turned around and left the room, knowing that they had a lot of work to do, as the door to the room closed behind them. They walked out onto a balcony that offered them an amazing view of the large ship that was almost finished. The rest of the room also repeated the phrase and started to fade away as they ended their communication. As Sato considered the future and his ultimate goals for the Land of Spring and eventually the entire world, he could only smile. The morning had arrived earlier than the recruits had anticipated, and standing next to them was none other than Fu, who had made the decision to join the order in order to save herself, as well as to save those who held special meaning for her in her hometown and, ideally, to free it as well. "You have chosen to become a member of our Order of Assassins. You will learn quite a bit about us and what we are all about. Your first lesson will be taught by my young apprentices who are already full-fledged assassins in their own right," said the older man who had introduced himself as Raven Uzumaki as he approached them directly. Before anyone had a chance to comment on the fact that he was the only assassin in the room, 2 people unexpectedly fell to the ground from the ceiling. They both stood up straight, drew back their hoods, and showed their faces to the recruits. She chose to introduce herself to the recruits and start their lessons with the creed. "My name is Yugito Ni, and I am a former ninja of the village hidden in the clouds." The recruits recognized Washi right away, but they were unaware of Yugito's identity. "After learning about the creed we live by, I decided to join the assassins in the hopes of one day rescuing my homeland. The first tenet of our creed, stay your blade from the flesh of an innocent, is what sets us apart from our adversaries. Or, to put it simply, don't kill innocent people." As Washi continued, "You all already know who I am. The second tenet of our creed is none other than to blend with the crowd. We must be seen and yet unseen to do our jobs correctly." They all expressed surprise that there was some kind of code of conduct that guided them in their work. Their determination to join the Brotherhood only seemed to grow stronger. "You will eventually learn to do this and turn into a ghost among those we are ultimately attempting to save. The last tenet is to never betray the Brotherhood. If we are compromised, it puts everything and everyone we are trying to save in great danger." Raven then made the decision to tell them, as the creed's last tenet. "Are you all set to start now?" After a week Aqua 526 AE Festival, after event. As was customary in the capital of Water Country, the Festival of Aqua would continue for several days, and the early morning hours of the next day beckoned as men and women continued to enjoy it. Because of the numerous canals and connecting rivers in the water district, where the festival was held, many people chose to travel by boat because it was a more dependable mode of transportation. Oboro and his proto-copyright Ga copyright were attending the festival's opening this early in the morning, as the city was just starting to see the first rays of sunlight. One of the numerous greeters, wearing a porcelain mask, welcomed the two men and their three-man bodyguard group to the festival and led them inside. The two men left the boat and approached a small group of people in what appeared to be a small area, but turned out to be a large courtyard full of people dancing to music as fireworks were thrown into the air all around them. Oboro grinned as he observed the scene in front of him, his proto-copyright Ga copyright wearing a porcelain mask that effectively concealed his face in case a resistance member was insane enough to attempt to hurt him. A small group of individuals was concealed away. Some of them were dressed simply as partiers, while others were women who were obviously members of the Courtesans Guild of Rosa. She gave a little giggle and gestured for her fellow courtesans to follow her out into the crowd to start the plan when one of the lead courtesans approached a man who was obviously dressed differently than the others and held out her hand while he placed a bag of money in her hands. When Oboro and his proto-copyright Ga copyright noticed a small group of courtesans who were obviously there to provide entertainment as well as other more specialized services, they approached them. At this point, Oboro and his proto-copyright Ga copyright were obviously enjoying the start of the festival. The two young, attractive women started working on Oboro and his proto-copyright Ga copyright right away. Oboro expressed interest but said he would think about it later. However, his proto-copyright Ga copyright couldn't resist dancing with the young woman and was led to the middle of the courtyard, where most of the dancing was happening. The guards gestured to try to stop him, but Oboro just put out his arm and said, "Let him have his fun, gentlemen." He then turned back to observe the celebrations. As more and more fireworks exploded overhead, creating a brilliant show of light above them for everyone to see, the proto-copyright Ga copyright danced with the young woman for approximately a minute in the middle of the courtyard. When he looked back down, he realized she was nowhere to be found, so he started searching the dance floor frantically for her. When he turned around, he saw a man in a black hood, who thrust his hand forward at the proto-copyright Ga copyright's throat. Oboro turned to face his proto-copyright Ga copyright, who was staring at him with fear and uncertainty. The young man reached up to grab his throat, but as a red fluid started to flow from his neck onto his hand, he fell forward, exposing the man in black behind him, who was obviously grinning at Oboro. Without hesitation, Oboro gave the order for his men to attack the assassin, saying, "Rip him apart." Without hesitation, the three guards rushed and attempted to kill the assassin who had rushed them. The assassin knocked the first bodyguard to the ground, temporarily incapacitating him. The next bodyguard then rushed him with his sword, intending to impale him, but the assassin grabbed it and impaled him with his own weapon. The final guard, holding a long pole, tried to engage the assassin but was startled when it was grabbed and torn from his grasp. This gave his target enough time to turn the weapon on him and impale him in the stomach. As this guard fell to the ground, the first to be attacked regained consciousness and looked up at his target with incredible fear. The assassin then dropped the spear and moved his sword out of the way before running after his real target. Fearing that the assassin would be pursuing him, Oboro ran through the streets as quickly as he could. A minute later, he arrived at a location where he knew more of his personal guards were waiting, and he yelled, "Guards! Guards, he's right behind me, you have to stop them." In front of an archway where his guards had been positioned in case of an emergency, he stopped dead in his tracks and said, "To the archway, don't let the bastard see you, and wait for my command." He then raised himself to his full height and moved forward, ensuring that his adversary could at least see him in the archway and that his plan would succeed. When he looked up, he saw the assassin standing on the roof of one of the buildings, staring down at him. After stepping off the building's roof and landing in a crouch on the ground, Washi raised himself to his full height, unleashed his concealed blade, and started to approach his target. After mocking his target with a series of claps, Oboro started to say, "Oh, impressive, most impressive. Unfortunately, we were unable to allow your parents to witness it." After hearing this, Washi immediately halted his advance, retracted his concealed blade, and walked back until he was once again one with the shadows. Oboro then added, "And once I have dealt with you and your fellow hosts, I plan to destroy all those who are truly loyal to you personally." Washi then raised his concealed gun and squeezed the trigger. Oboro heard the loud explosion and felt a sharp pain directly through his chest, where his heart was. He realized that this descendant of an ancient warrior order would be the last place he would ever see as he fell backwards and struck the ground with such force that his porcelain mask broke to pieces a few feet behind him. His guards were genuinely shocked by this and started to enter the archway in the hopes of seeing his killer, only to discover that it was devoid of any human life. Two of the guards went to their master in the hopes of helping him, but they discovered that his spark of life had already left his body and that the blood that had been pulling around it was now encircling a small metal cross with a red jewel in the center. When Washi Yugito and the recruits were out of sight, the guards became terrified for their lives and started to flee, some of them even screaming as they did so. They watched as the guards went crazy trying to find any sign of them. When Yugito turned to face the man she had fallen deeply in love with, she saw him kneeling and holding a small box with a ring inside. "Will you be mine forever, my love?" In complete disbelief, she opened her mouth in a startled and joyful manner before finally saying, "Yes, I will." Akima was shocked when her friends and family dragged her out of the Animus early, and all she could say was, "Oh, come on guys, it was just getting good." Then an older man with multiple scars and a pineapple like hairstyle said, "It was your mother's choice, not mine, to pull you out early." With a sense of authority that only a Grand Master of the Brotherhood of Assassins could have, she turned to see her mother approaching her and saying, "Raven warned us this machine is dangerous still, and I do not want to lose one of my children to this damn thing." "You're not going to lose me, Mom," Akima said as she got up and approached her mother. "Thanks to this machine and our bloodline, I was able to see Daddy in his prime. However, why am I also experiencing Templar-related memories? We recently discovered something that could finally give us the edge to destroy the Templars once and for all," Yugito ni Uzumaki said, glancing into her daughter's eyes. "But there's a catch?" "Mom, what kind of catch?" "By reliving your father's time as an assassin in the Land of Water. Only you or your brother and sister will be able to see what they were keeping from us. You will also be able to guide the Brotherhood in putting an end to this war and preventing this man from carrying out his ultimate plan. The only person who can thwart this Moon's Eye scheme and, ideally, save humanity before it's too late is you. The Templars have stolen a lot of our friends and family, so please put me back in. So be it, if doing this will allow me to save our planet." "All right, but you rest today and just remember what happened to your ancestor Desmond. I don't want that to happen to you as well." The renowned Animus, as it was known to the Uzumaki clan, was once used by none other than their ancestor Desmond Miles. "Even if it does, we will know more than we ever did before, and don't worry about me, Mom. I won't let that bastard Uchiha or his son ever take me." Akima continued down the hallway to the Soul Sanctuary room. The 17-year-old woman entered the enormous room that housed the fabled machine and all of its complex mechanisms, along with her twin brother Minato, who was working at one of the numerous stations that enabled the Animus to function at its peak efficiency. Shikamaru Nara, who was sitting at a different console, appeared both tired and bored at the same time as usual, and occasionally mumbled the words that were bothering her. Akima entered the room as Shikamaru looked up from his work. He saw her surveying the space before he said, "It's troublesome, but this place never seems to cease to amaze me as well." "Well," she said, turning to face him, "this place was built to last despite what happened to the village above it long ago." Yugito entered the room and said, "I know, and pretty soon you'll be able to see what it looks like long ago before the reconstruction began, my daughter." When their mother, who had just announced her presence to them, approached her children and gave them a once-over, Akima and her brother turned to face her. "Is everything ready to?" "All right, in the last 2 days I've gotten the Animus up to a new level. Originally it was 8.0, now it's 10.0. Basically baby's going to be one hell of a ride for you sis," Minato said after nodding to his mother and moving to one of the numerous terminals that allowed the Animus to carry out its functions. He then sat down, put on a headset, and turned to face his mother and sister. "I swear you're beginning to sound like our ancestor Rebecca now," his sister said, drawing interest from both Yugito and Akima. "Thanks to the Animus bloodline, how do you think I know how to operate baby here? All the features we've seen when we relived Desmond's memories are in the Animus as well. Since we can only view Dad's memories when we use the Animus or our bloodline, it begs the question, so I'll be able to see information on the people that Dad had an encounter with and the people who were interacting with the Templars?" She questioned him. Then, pointing to a strange object in a corner of the room, Minato said, "That's the object in question that lets us see what the Templars were up to in the water capital at the time, and I'm afraid to say only the water capital." "So, What aspect of the animus is it? Yes and no, its primary purpose is to document events in a specific area for as long as I can tell, roughly 1,000 years, after which the only method to access the data is by using an animus. The worst part is that it's only made to function with our lineage, he stated. Although her brother wasn't done yet, Akam was shocked to say the least, and get this, was designed by the Templars to work for us as some kind of security measure. So the stories we were told about the two types of. Some of your questions will be answered, but you really need to get into the animus as we are running out of time, her mother said as she approached them before she could say anything more. After both of her kids simply nodded as they positioned themselves, Akam sat down on the recliner and entered the White Room to access the animus mainframe. Her brother then looked at her prior to entering the system and replied, "All right sis babies, all set, everything you see and experience while you're in there will be recorded, and at the same time we've updated all the data systems, so if you come across any places or people or events, the animus will give you information from its digital archive, and you got us helping, right, you lazy bastard over there." With a simple eye roll, Shikamaru remarked, "You two are so much like your father, it's scary and so troublesome." Akam simply shook her head and leaned back as she entered the main frame and found herself in a White Room. The White Room vanished in a matter of seconds, and the buildings of Water Country's capital began to form in front of her, along with the year 526 AE May. A woman with long black hair and red piercing eyes approached him and chose to speak aloud so he could hear her. "You look like a man who has the world on his back and can do nothing to stop it from crushing him because of his own fears that have caused this event?" She watched the buildings form but was then carried out to sea by the animus and figure out to sea to an incoming ship and came to rest on its deck. A man with a mask and a headband covering one of his eyes was currently staring out upon the sea. "This mission requires me to be at my best if I am to bring him back to his home. I still can't believe he just ran away," Kakashi said, turning to face his fellow Jonin. Kurenai herself had a hard time believing that Naruto had simply fled after being kicked out of the Shinobi program by the Civilian Council and the Council of Elders after the Uchiha retrieval mission disaster. In fact, she thought it was suspicious that a vote had been held to kick him out in the first place. Sakura Haruno, his lone surviving pupil, approached them at this precise moment and asked, "Sensei, do you think we'll find him here of all places?" Since he had left, the village had grown rather dull and, in some ways, corrupt. Kakashi and Kurenai could only hope that they would return and restore some semblance of stability. They heard some of the sailors chatting among themselves before they could answer her question, and they quickly became interested in what they were saying. "I'm telling you man, I think things are getting better, they just look like they're getting worse." "I know what you mean, ever since they assassinated Oboro and his apprentice things have gotten better in the docks and other ports because of it. It's hard to imagine that all of this happened within the span of a few months, and I'm telling you those assassins are far more dangerous than any of the ninja or the daimyo's red guards could ever be." "Yes, I understand what you're saying, man. However, I'm a little curious as to why our daimyo has brought all of these foreign ninjas to the capital thus far." As his partner started scanning their surroundings, one of them uttered those words. The second sailor continued, "You're right, but we should talk about this later as I feel there are too many people listening in and I'd like to stay a free man, you get my meaning." "What were they talking about, Kakashi-sensei?" "I thought ninjas were assassins," Kurenai said, turning to Sakura after observing the two of them return to their duties. But only Kurenai saw his worried expression when he added, "I don't know Sakura, but I have a feeling we are going to find out quite soon." The Konoha ninjas were largely unaware that they were being watched by nearly every dockworker, including a few who reported directly to the Resistance and the Assassin Brotherhood. The same person who had witnessed the ninjas from Fire Country disembarking also saw a number of odd people wearing black battle cloaks with red clouds. They all had a distinct goal on their faces as they put on straw hats and entered the heart of the watery land. The dock worker carried on with his work, knowing that in a few hours he would be delivering a very special report to his superiors. He also knew that the calm and peace that had descended upon the city would be broken like glass in no time at all. When was the only question? The water daimyo himself was standing in front of Kakashi, Kurenai, Asuma, Guy, and Yamato, along with their former students. He had a sly smile on his face as he surveyed them like a predator pursuing its prey, relishing the food to come with the assurance that his will would be carried out at all costs. He then stopped right in front of Hinata and gently stroked some of her gorgeous hair before saying to her, looking into her lavender eyes and, in this sense, looking straight into her soul, My, you are indeed a very lovely young woman, And a very rare bird, aren't you? It unnerved them all so much that they were jumping at shadows and sounds, even the Jonin. Maybe you'll be the one to persuade him to return home and put all of this nonsense behind him. These maps should help you in locating your missing friend a little easier now. If you'll excuse me, I have a meeting I must attend to, Kurenai said, handing the Jonins a set of maps of the capital city. Kurenai wanted to tear this man to pieces, but he knew that was impossible at this moment and that any attempt to do so would be an act of war on their part. She could now understand why her best friend and brother-like figure had chosen to come here, and she knew he would not leave with them until his work was done. Hinata had never felt more violated in her life than she did at that very moment. Her sensei approached her and inquired, "Hinata, are you okay? What do we do now?" "I'll be alright, sensei. I just don't want to ever see that man again," she inquired. "Yamato, Guy, take them back to the hotel along with the information and try to develop a plan of attack for bring Naruto back to us," Kakashi ordered, taking command of the situation. "Asuma, you're with me, Kurenai. You and my father are quite the crafty ones, I must admit. Sato. Either they will capture him or the Akatsuki secret agents who have safely arrived as well. I might add, we'll do it. Either way, the Templars are now winning this war and we are one step closer to true order, my friend," Sato said, turning to Bane, who had just emerged from behind one of the numerous pillars that lined the royal meeting room of the daimyo of Water Country. "It is true, my friend, that we are much closer to victory, but let us not forget that they are a wildcard to be sure, and I suspect they could turn on us in the end," Sato said, his smile only getting bigger. "We are undoubtedly taking a calculated risk here. By the way, has Aizen found that unscrupulous pirate yet?" "Not yet. His search for the assassins is going as well as ours. He does, however, believe that they are utilizing some of the Wave Nation's natural defenses to keep us at bay because they appear to be adept at navigating. Whenever his less experienced captains encounter them there, the ships and crews are lost to the local whirlpools. Tell him to find a way to take them out as soon as possible, and not just that traitor Jack Webb and his mud-blood daughter either." As Bane put his hat on his head and went about his work of the Knights Templar, he could only smile to himself. Kurenai became a little irate and turned to face Kakashi, saying, "You brought us to a bookstore. If we are here to pick up one of your dirty novels, I swear, Kakashi, that I'm going to." The two of them had been following Kakashi for some time when they finally arrived at a bookstore called the World of Old Books. Before she could continue, he turned to her and said, "I don't hear about it right now, all right," in a tone of authority that only a former Anbu captain could have. "I don't want to hear about it, okay? We're meeting someone here who might actually know what's going on." After a few minutes of observing the store, they heard a voice calling out to them from behind a bookcase. "I don't see many foreign ninja walking into this country, or even this capital for that matter, without a purpose in mind." Both of them could only nod their heads as he said this and followed him inside. Then, with a cane in his left hand and a book in his right, Kakashi approached the elderly man and bowed to him respectfully. "Master Jiraiya told me to seek you out here if we ever needed your assistance, and I believe this is one of those times," Kakashi said, as it was obvious from his demeanor that this was the man they were meant to meet when they first arrived at this unusual store. As he approached a desk and chair and sat down, the man appeared genuinely contemplative. He then turned to face the young ninja who had approached him for advice and support, saying, "The question must be asked first, what do you seek of me here in the water capital, if I may be so bold?" Kurenai chose to respond by saying, "We are here looking for a young man named Naruto Uzumaki, for the second time." "Why do you seek a member of the Assassin's Brotherhood, and aren't his first name Washi?" Kurenai asked, observing his shocked and surprised expression. To their surprise, the three said, "But the assassins have been extinct for almost 30 years, you must be mistaken, he can't be one of them. They simply fell for a while, and anything that falls can rise again, so they were never really extinct. This also applies to the assassins." When Kurenai and Asuma finally had enough, she wanted to know what they were discussing. "What the hell are you two talking about? I thought that ninjas were assassins," she said. "The only ninjas that I know of that could even match a mid-level assassin aside from the cages themselves are the Anbus, and that's because they are trained similarly in the ways of stealth, and even they and normal everyday ninjas use ninjutsu or genjutsu way too much nowadays and don't even bother to operate on the concept of stealth," the elderly man said, turning his head to face her directly. His voice was one that only a man who had witnessed great battles and death could muster. The old man's remarks regarding ninjas nearly made Kurenai feel offended. All right, so what's the difference between us? The elderly man then stood up, went to a door, opened it, and gestured for them to follow him inside. When they entered the internet room, they saw that a number of books were on display pedestals, one of which had an odd red letter-like symbol that they had never seen before. He then gestured for them to approach and opened the book before starting to tell the story, saying, "The Assassin's Brotherhood as the world knows it has been around for a very long time, in fact almost 1,000 years before the great event even occurred." The old man went on to say, "This book contains a large amount of information that was thought lost to the world about them. It has taken me decades to compile this and even to create this book that stands before you now, which shocked the three of them. According to what my research has shown, the assassins had a saying that went, 'We work in the shadows to serve the light, we are assassins.' They were trained to be flawless killers and were genuinely one with the shadows." Then, Amma was the next to inquire, saying, "What do you mean?" "It is said that they could walk among the people themselves, blending in hiding in plain sight," the elderly man continued, adding that one of their three creedal tenets was to blend with the crowd, become one of many, strike your target, and disappear. And I can guarantee you that they have done just that in the past month, but occasionally they do make a show out of their killings, as was the case when they killed that bitch Oboro's son and his apprentice. When Kakashi and Kurenai heard the two sailors discussing the same incident back on the ship, they were both drawn to it. "We heard about this from two sailors talking about the same thing. Who was this guy anyways?" Kakashi said. The former Grand Navy Dock Master, who answered directly to the daimyo, was also in charge of reporting numerous bloodline users. The assassins are responsible for the deaths of both him and his apprentice, who helped kill many people during the Purge and have continued to aid the Templars in maintaining control over this city and nation. And they simply carried it out in the middle of the day? More like at sunrise, and they were able to disappear into the city like ghosts, something you people can't do anymore with the same vigor and ability. What's more, they don't need the use of chakra to be who they are," the elderly gentleman replied. Few people in the world had the motivation and training to fight any kind of ninja without using chakra, so this took them all by surprise. "So you're telling us that they can be just about anyone and everywhere?" "Yes, they can do many of the same things you can do without using chakra," the elderly man said after simply nodding in agreement. "Even assassins who use chakra are trained to control it to such an extent that tracking them is nearly impossible, and it doesn't help that they had the Uzumaki clan to help them. In fact, it gives them a huge advantage over you, especially since almost every sensor-type ninja is looking for your kind of chakra output so they can track you or know if you found a way into their strongholds. Actually, if you ask me, I believe the Uzumaki were the assassins. Indeed, it makes sense that the Brotherhood disbanded when their clan was essentially destroyed, which, I might add, also marked the beginning of the final Great Ninja War." Suddenly, Kakashi recalled an incident that nearly sparked another major ninja battle between his sensei and their target's mother, Kushina Uzumaki. This incident also helped shape Kakashi into the bearded man he is today and ultimately led to his election as the fourth Hokage Konoha. Then Asuma made the decision to ask the elderly man another question. "All right, what more can you tell us about these assassins?" "Quite a bit. Bear in mind what I have already told you, but then there is their creed." "What is the creed?" Kurenai questioned him. "The creed is how they live their lives. Nothing is true, everything is permitted," he said, turning to face her. "We are assassins when other men blindly follow the truth while remembering that nothing is true, or when other men are constrained by morality or the law while remembering that everything is acceptable. That is their philosophy, and it includes three distinct tenets that not even you ninja would think to adhere to." "And those are?" Asuma inquired. "The creed's first principle is to avoid cutting innocent people. Even though they are skilled murderers, they do not kill without cause. I might add, unlike most ninjas I know." "Which tenet is the second one?" Kakashi inquired. "As you work, blend in with the crowd and allow them to conceal you. One of their tenets is stealth, which they incorporate into their daily lives as they move through this city. And the last renter? Don't jeopardize the Brotherhood or the clan. Their fundamental code of honor safeguards not only them but also the individuals they are attempting to rescue." He told them, "So good luck trying to get one of them to talk. You caught them, that is." This information made the three of them realize that their mission had become somewhat more challenging, to put it mildly. More than anyone else, Asuma thought to himself, "Well, that sucks." A history exists, doesn't it? Kurenai questioned him. There is, of course, my love. Are you interested in hearing about it? Yes. You are aware that I prefer her to the two of you. Based on the fragments I managed to piece together, the story starts in the year 1191 in the Holy Lands with an assassin named Altair. He was a young man with the kind of power that only their grandmasters could have, but he had grown conceited and haughty, and as a result of a botched mission, he finally broke the creed's tenets. After all of this resulted in an attack on their house, Altair was given the opportunity to turn his life around and discover the true meaning of the creed. He was sent to kill 9 people who brought the plague, and eventually he was successful in learning that there was a huge plot to take over the actual lands. The Knights Templar were that group, he said. How did you find out about this? As I said, I have compiled years of research to learn what I know now, and when I was a young man with first-hand experience seeing them in actual action, but even that is just scratching the surface of their hidden history, and I'm not the only one looking, he continued. The Templars, you mean? Kakashi questioned him. Very good, Mr. One-Eye, but I still like her more, the elderly man said, nodding and simply grinning at them before pointing to Kakashi. Some of the information relates to the second part of the war, where another assassin named Ezio, I'm not even sure if that's his real name, had to fight. I was fortunate to obtain some of this information before some other undesirables obtained it. Anyway, who was this Ezio? Asuma inquired. A young Italian nobleman who spent a significant portion of his life fighting the Templars after they killed his father and brothers compelled him to become an assassin. According to what else I could find, there were a few other assassins who carried on the battle against the Templars over the ages and who were somewhat significant, but I'm not sure where to begin searching for information about them. Then, in 2012, Desmond, a descendant of those 2 men, made every effort to lead a normal life apart from the ancient war in which his ancestors had fought. Regretfully, he was not that fortunate. Then Asuma noticed something. Didn't the great event take place in 2012? After clapping his hands together, the elderly man remarked, that's right, he can be taught. Because of the event, gaining information on the Templars and assassins is very difficult to say the least. At that moment, Kakashi had an idea. Unless you're a Templar or an assassin, I take it. Yes and no. If any of them still have the knowledge, it's the assassins. Unlike the Templars, the assassins stayed in hiding. The Templars were practically everywhere. They were a huge company whose name is lost to time, and when the event occurred it practically annihilated them, leaving very few survivors. And I take it, unlike the assassins, they did not stay in hiding? Kurenai then questioned her. You're half right, my dear. After the incident, some Templars realized that their initial plans to bring about peace through coercion were simply unrealistic. They attempted to persuade the others that they needed to cooperate with the assassins and world survivors in order to accomplish that goal. They may have been wiped out as well, based on the scant information I could find, and if they survived, they also went into hiding to protect themselves, he said. So there's a possible group of Templars hiding somewhere in the world who are secretly waiting to help the assassins stop their evil cousins. Basically yes, but I believe they have personally become guardians of knowledge, trying to share the world and know that the assassins will let them do it, whereas their cousins would kill them at a drop of hat. How can we locate them, then? Kakashi inquired. You might get lucky and see them in action on the streets, or they're more likely to find you. Just make sure they see you as friend, not an enemy, or you'll have a hidden blade in your backs. The elderly gentleman continued. Blade hidden? Kurenai inquired in an inquisitive tone. It is the Assassin Brotherhood's weapon, and it can be easily hidden on their forearms and wrists. As they got ready to leave the store, the elderly man handed them a number of boxes and said, Jiraiya told me to have certain items copied from my collection so you could prepare yourselves for what you would see here. Within these boxes and this book are all the information that I have gathered throughout my long 94 years of life will be in your hands from this point forward, my dear lovely lady, the elderly man said as he stopped Kurenai and gave her the book from the pedestal. After meeting his eyes, she asked, Why are you giving us your life's work? You must understand that I have lived a long and full life, and I recall the hope that people would feel when they saw them just running. However, 30 years ago, they were all but exterminated, and all of this darkness descended upon us, and it is only now starting to lift. Additionally, I don't think I'll live much longer, either from old age or if something happens to me. I just ask that you protect this information. Curious about something, Kurenai had to inquire, What's your name? The elderly man remarked, It is Hanzo, and now you will remember me. After all of their non-stop work for the Brotherhood that needed their attention, Yugito entered the bedroom she shared with her future husband Washi, who was currently taking a much-needed nap. She then sat down on the bed and lay beside him, watching him dream as he undoubtedly relived a memory of one of his ancestors. She frequently pondered what it would be like to share in his experiences. The White Room reappeared at this precise moment, indicating that Akima was saddened as she entered a new memory that her father was reliving in his sleep when she noticed that everything seemed to center around him. "Hey Minato, what's going on?" As the White Room loaded the memory, she heard her brother say to her, "It looks like you get to relive another one of our ancestors' memories, like when we saw that memory from Ezio." "Hey Mom, do you have any idea what we're about to see?" Akima then made the decision to ask her mother if she knew what this memory would be about. Why spoil the surprise, sweetheart? As the White Room vanished into what appeared to be open fields of lush green that blew ever so slightly in the wind, she remarked, "Great, but here we go." The boundary between Earth and the Lands of Fire, April 510 AE. The board of the Lands of Fire Country and Earth Country appeared to be quite serene and surreal as the wind blew the tall grass across the plain carelessly. However, this serene scene was abruptly disrupted when more than 500 Earth ninjas appeared, taking up position to stop anyone from removing their hostages. The peace delegation from the Land of Fires, which also included a rather irritated red-headed woman named Kushina Uzumaki, and the Land of Earth, which included their Cage of the Hidden Stone Village, his son, and his daughter In.Law, who was in her final month of pregnancy, were sitting among the hostages. Alongside two of his students, Toad Sage Jiraiya and Snake Sage Orochimaru, the third Hokage Sarutobi stood a considerable distance away from the slowly gathering members of the Hidden Leaf Village and a number of stone ninjas who had come to try to save their people. They were trying to figure out how to save the hostages without igniting a new ninja war, which, if allowed to happen, would be the source of many tips. Is there any way for us to successfully rescue the hostages without starting a war? Minato Namikaze and his surviving student Kakashi Hitaki were standing directly behind them, listening in on the conversation in the hopes of finding a solution, which, based on what they had heard so far, wasn't looking good. The Snake Sage continued, "Not from what we've seen, so far they haven't heard any of the hostages, but we all know that's going to change shortly. Did anyone inform Minato that Kushina was assigned to the peace treaty team and that she is currently in the hands of our enemies over there?" Jiraiya then questioned them. Orochimaru remarked, "Jiraiya, your student better not do anything stupid." The Hokage continued, "It may not matter if he does something radical. I fear we may already be in a new war and there is nothing we can do to stop it, I'm afraid to say." Minato's expression changed from one of fear to one of resolve, and he quickly pivoted and went to his bag to retrieve some supplies he would need to free Kushina and all the other hostages. "Look, Sensei, I know how much you like her and all, but this is not a good idea and you could get them killed if you do something right now," Kakashi said, trying to stop his sensei as soon as he saw the expression on his face. "You make it sound like I'm going to get them killed," he said, turning back to his student. "I'm just taking an enthusiastic walk to clear my head before I do something stupid, Kakashi." When Kakashi realized what was about to happen, all he could do was slap his own face and say, "You and your very enthusiastic walks, Sensei." Nobody knew that Minato had recently perfected his Flying Thunder God Jutsu and was eager to try it out. He knew that this was the best time for him to do so, so he put his hidden blades on both wrists, knowing that they would be useful. He was also pleased that Kushina had brought him along to meet the great mentor Raven and train to become one of the few assassins left in the world. To help him close the distance and unleash his plan on his enemies, he quickly called forth one of his best toads. He mounted the toad, swiftly pulled his concealed hood over his head, and got ready for the mission in hands. "I know that I'm asking a lot of you, but will you help me in doing this?" he asked his summer. "It would be an honor to fight and die with you if that is our fate," the toad remarked, nodding his head. "Then let's hope it doesn't come to that. Now it's time to show them what I've kept hidden all this time and what happens when they threaten everything I hold dear. Let's go." While still trying to think of a way to save the hostages without going to war, the third Hokage realized that he needed more men and that they wouldn't be able to stop this from happening in time. He could only pray for a miracle when he saw what appeared to be a blue and red toad with a young Jonin that he immediately recognized fly past them, shocking the troops that were gathered. They couldn't believe that someone would be crazy enough to take on 500 rogue stone ninjas. When the toad leapt high into the air and threw the man up in the air before returning to the summoner realm, the toad unleashed a scroll and hundreds of odd three-pronged blades that started to rain down all over the field, some of which even hit close to the hostages, including one that almost hit the operations leader who escaped it just in time. The assembled enemy ninjas were shocked that one of the leaf ninjas would be insane enough to attack them directly, as this crazy man with a hood was doing. The group's leader turned to face the strange man who had dared to attack them directly, but as he did, he vanished in a flash of yellow light and reappeared next to a small group of his medics, whom he then proceeded to kill with a slit throat, killing them all in the process. The leader then vanished again in the same manner, reappearing in front of another group that was carrying out the same attack, killing them as well, but only seeing a portion of the strange warrior's face and a determination that suggested it wasn't over. Minato saw Kushina releasing her restraints and getting ready to attack after he looked the renegade leader in the eyes and realized that he was not acting alone and that he needed to call in all the stops to put an end to this madness once and for all. It was only at this point that the leader realized what was going to happen and proceeded to kill the stone cage and his daughter. Law first, despite the old Earth Shadow's pleas that she was innocent and should be spared. To everyone's surprise, he created a small group of about 10 more shadow clones of himself, and they all swiftly engaged the enemies using the Flying Thunder God technique, cutting them down like they were practically nothing within moments. At this precise moment, the renegade leader realized he was standing close to one of the strange weapons that had been scattered on the ground. The yellow flash appeared directly in front of him, and he then unleashed the same type of weapon, striking him in the chest. The red-headed woman was free of her restraints and killing them with strange weapons attached to her wrists that they had missed. The leader had succeeded in knocking Minato off him, but Minato promptly tore open the man's combat armor to reveal a cross that resembled a piece of jewelry with a red ruby in the center. Minato immediately recognized the man and asked, "Why did you do all of this? In exchange for your willingness to start another war and take many more lives, what could the Templars have offered you?" The leader was startled by this and replied, "It was all for power. The man with the mask gave me what I needed to destroy the Hidden Leaf's one hope of stopping us in the next war. Then we would have finally been the strongest hidden village and you would either be dead or nothing more than our slaves in the end. You would willingly murder so many innocents for your own selfish needs and you were responsible for starting the last great war and here you are trying to start a new one. Did the Templars even give you a hint this could happen and that all your hopes for the future would be torn asunder?" Laughing, the rebel leader said, "I never would have thought that this could happen to us, just remember it's not over." Minato closed the man's eyes and put his hand on his face before saying, "May you find peace and rest in the next life." The old man turned to Minato and said, "I thank you for saving us and my family, and I want you to truly know I want peace." Yellow flash of Konoha. Kushina had already hurried over to assist the stone cage's daughter. Law, who was now in the middle of labor. When this was said, the White Room reappeared, transporting Akima back to the land of water in her father's place. She had just seen the bedroom ring material when she noticed her father awake and smiling as he turned to face her mother. Her mother asked her father, "So what did you do this time?" as a message stating that she had fully synchronized with the ancestral memory she had just experienced through his memories appeared at this precise moment. They heard a knock on the door before he could respond to her, and Fu told them to hurry because something had happened. When they got back to the hotel, Kakashi made the decision to review the information that the owner of the old bookstore had given them about the assassins because of Master Jiraiya's informant in the Land of Water. He chose to share the information with 3 of the top specialists from their different teams that had been assigned to this mission. His only female student, Tenten, was a true weapons expert who could ascertain the effective capabilities of the assassin's weapons. He had chosen his longtime rival and former Anbu member Might Guy and his student Rock Lee to study the hand combat or taijutsu styles, according to the information shown. Shikamaru Nara, a certified genius who was primarily responsible for creating attack strategies against their adversaries, was the last person to receive the information. They were all very interested in the information and worked to devise a strategy to deal with the assassins and successfully recover their target. All Shikamaru needed to do was ask, "Why are we doing this at all?" In order to explain why they were doing this in the first place, Kakashi chose to give the following simple example. If what the old man told us is true, then we have a major amount of problems in the future, and as the old saying goes, we must know our enemies. Shikamaru merely muttered, "Troublesome," and appeared to return to his work, developing theories and tactics regarding their possible ally or enemy. After giving them more than an hour, Kakashi asked, Does anyone have any employment information and can share, yet? To see if they had any preliminary information to share at this time. From what I can tell, they are extremely effective in several different forms of taijutsu that we are extremely unfamiliar with, I'm sorry to say, said Guy, who was the first to speak. Can you guys give us an example? Well, they use a form of free running that does not require the use of chakra at all. It is known as parkour, and I hope I have pronounced it correctly. The idea behind it is to use it to climb and maneuver using the environment itself. The problem is I don't have enough of the system to recreate it perfectly. The fact that even the powerful Guy was struggling with a specific fighting style shocked everyone in the room. So you're having a problem recreating this fighting style? No, it's not fighting style at all, but it can be adapted to assist one if need be. As I said, it is predominantly designed to work as a form of transportation. And in this city where they have seals that can suppress the use of chakra altogether makes it quite an effective way to get around and to escape your enemies or to get the drop on one. Guy spoke to them with an air of admiration in his tone. You said it could be used with other forms of fighting styles? Kakashi asked, suddenly realizing that this kind of free running could be extremely lethal in the wrong hands. Oh yes, it can be very easily adapted to just about any fighting style to assist it in my eternal rival. The problem here is that their primary fighting style is designed to use your opponent's actions against them in an effective counter-kill system that evening we would have problems trying to counteract. In response, Kiba said, I doubt very much that they could counter my family's signature attacks. As much as I would like to say that your family's fighting style would be effective against them, is a good chance it would not stop them in the least. Their fighting styles don't use a single bit of chakra at all, and they quite possibly have chakra suppression seals that they can use, and since they don't use chakra it can give them a huge advantage in combat since we tend to enhance all of our attacks using chakra. How skilled would they have to be to do that? Kiba and his nin-dog Akamaru were quite concerned when they discovered that their fighting style could be countered with virtually no effort at all. Guy was attempting to gauge their level of skill when he came to the startling realization that, I hate to say it, but they may already be a credible threat to us. Individually, one of the more skilled students could probably be injured, or if they got lucky, kill one of us. In about a year's time we may not be able to fight them individually without your team present, and even then it could be incredibly dangerous to us. So you're saying that right now is our best chance to get Naruto back before the assassins grow in strength anymore? Yamato then made the decision to pose the query. I'm afraid so, since they have another fighting style that is designed predominantly for offenses rather than defensive, and they can switch between the two at the drop of a hat. The current recruits I have not yet been trained to properly use this yet, but in say 6 more months we won't be that fortunate and they will be a considerable threat to their enemies. The problem isn't the students but the 3 master assassins here that we've going to have problems with, and I believe that one of them is Naruto, which also means that he knows a certain degree of what we're all capable of. After realizing this, Ino said aloud for everyone to hear, it's been a year and a half since we last saw him, and I find it very unlikely that the dead last could predict what any of us would do or that he would even consider hurting us. Before we can answer that question, Ino, we need to put together more information on our potential target. Kakashi then chose to turn the conversation to Tenten. After clearing her throat, Tenten started outlining what she had discovered thus far, saying, well, I can tell you one thing for certain. These weapons, I want them. They use a lot of our weapons, but some things that are described here are just too incredible to imagine without seeing firsthand in action, she continued, evoking the priceless look of surprise on almost everyone's face. This hidden blade, for example, could be easily concealed on anyone. The term that's used to describe this weapon's effective nature, a blade in the crowd, is far more accurate than I would have thought possible. So it's the most common weapon among them. So it's predominantly used as an assassination weapon? Was the next question that Sakura chose to pose. That's its primary use, but he can also double as a pretty effective hand combat weapon if the need arises. There's so many hairs can take time to develop just what they're capable of. I need more time, Tenten replied. So do I, but I can at least give you a preliminary evaluation on these assassins from what I've learned so far. If Naruto is indeed one of them, then they can develop strategies to counteract us from succeeding in our mission, Shikamaru said, still gathering all the information he had encountered. So then why would the assassins come to the land of water in the first place? Was the question Sai chose to pose for himself. Kakashi then came up with an alternate response. They're here because the bloodline war isn't completely over yet. Even in the land of fire we heard rumors that innocent people were still being murdered on a regular basis here. It's quite possible that they came to liberate this country and to rebuild their order. The truth is, it's quite possible we're here to stop them from saving this country altogether, and our own elders could be directly involved, as well as they're the ones who forced the Lady Hokage to send us on this mission in the first place, while all except for. According to Asuma, Danzo. Kakashi simply nodded as he continued. Exactly, look underneath the underneath. I think both he and the Hokage sent us here to uncover what is really going on. And if what we've learned already is any indication on what to go by, we are running out of time. After listening in on the conversation, Sai realized how correct Kakashi was and how crucial it had become to finish the mission that his own mentor had given him. Their order had been grieving the loss of their covert ally, the assassins, for a while now. They had been created as a result of the Templars' oppression. Originally, the Templars had been a part of their order because they thought that their quest for knowledge would benefit humanity. However, they soon learned that, if it weren't for one assassin who had saved their first true leader, Copernicus, that knowledge would be suppressed and they would be killed for their desire to aid the world. The Illuminati was just one of the many names they had adopted over the centuries, but they generally preferred the term Freemasons. It was time for the Masons and Assassins to finally overthrow the Templars' oppression.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.